Chapter 725. Horrifying Master from Southern Dipper Yi Shiwen was now most worried about the relatives in Yuan sect. The emergent school's sudden invasion not only blindsided others, but also caught Yi Shiwen by surprise. During this time, he just wanted to increase his strength before the emergent school invades. At first, he wanted to evacuate his relatives in Yuan sect after he was all prepared. Man proposes but God disposes. Before he managed to wait until he was fully prepared, the emergent school had launched their sudden assault. Now he must go back and have a look. As for Star Beast Avatar, it was still trying to break through the half-step transcendent realm, and it was at the most critical step. After thinking about it, he decided to go back to the Great Yu Empire first and evacuate his parents to a safe place. As for the Star Beast Avatar, its strength was much stronger than that of his. Naturally, there was no problem. Thinking of this, he spread his golden wings and flapped instantly. He channeled his storm power and flew out. He was somewhat fast, especially after he broke through the Great Sage Realm. In all respects, the most obvious improvement apart from physical strength was speed. In an instant, he flew out of the extraterrestrial battlefield and flew towards True Martial Domain. But he did not rush in the direction of the True Martial School. Over there might have become a huge Azura battlefield. Emergent School only launched an ad hoc assault on the extraterrestrial battlefield. However, the True Martial School was now inevitably under siege by the Great Army. Although Yi Shiwen did not fly in the direction of True Martial School, when he flew into the True Martial Domain, he still saw the vast aura in the direction of the True Martial Domain. This terrifying aura was huge, reaching to the skies as the world changed color. It was like a huge storm, and no one knew how many terrifying masters were hidden in it. Yi Shiwen could not help but change his expression when he saw this scene. It was hard to imagine that the background of Emergent School was really so dreadful. From afar, the splendid magical bursts of the collision between top experts could be seen. Although splendid, they were unusually terrifying. In such a war, I am afraid that my cultivation skill is no more than cannon fodder. Yi Shiwen could not help but say that in the midst of the collision of such huge behemoths, perhaps only the strongest in the transcendent realm could freely move around. And, for those really strong people, you are still quite inferior to them in a great margin. You have just built the foundation. Even the transcendent realm is nothing. Yemo had always been very loud. He who followed the legendary Demon King was undaunted by these masters. Yi Shiwen only stopped for a while. Yi Shiwen was worried about his loved ones. He did not waste any more time, and went straight to the direction of the Great Yu Empire. Meanwhile, in the sealed site of the underground, Yi Zaiwen's Star Beast Avatar sat in front of the barrier constantly performing magic spells, absorbing the blood and vital energy of this Star Beast, enriching itself. Compared to the Great Sage Realm that this person wanted to break through, the Star Beast Avatar needed more blood and vital energy to break through to half-step Transcendent Realm. The Transcendent Realm was another brand new level. The name Transcendent was the hope of supreme martial arts practitioners, and the hope of countless people. Transcendent, unstained, transcending beyond matter. Although the Transcendent Realm was not exactly transcendent, it was the first step of transcendent. This was a brand new realm, and the energy he needed to accumulate was almost more than the energy he had accumulated since he began to practice martial arts. If it was an ordinary creature whose blood and vital energy was so frenziedly absorbed by him, it would probably be sucked into dried meat. He could only absorb it so relentlessly through using the top creature at the top of the food chain such as the Star Beast. Repulsive, vile damn human, I will not spare you. The Star Beast still roared and bellowed. Although a lot of its blood and vital energy was extracted by Yi Shiwen, it was nothing for the extremely powerful Star Beast. Or that there was no major impact at all. The angrier it became, the louder it roared, the tighter the chain of law on its body became, more essential blood and energy were removed to supplement the barrier. It's really an amazing barrier. It must really be arranged by a barrier master. Suddenly, behind Yi Shiwen came a cold, contemptuous voice. This is the legendary giant star beast that feeds on the universe? It's not easy now to see this kind of fierce beast. Who is it? Yi Shiwen screamed, and the endless chi on his palms instantly condensed, turned into a palm knife, and struck backward. A dozen sword chi was suddenly formed and cut through the air. He suddenly looked back and saw a man in a black cloak. He could not see the face clearly, but he could feel a weird hint of ridicule on his face. The dozens of long swords chi swayed by Yi Shiwen split the vast sky instantly. The weirdest thing was that it actually penetrated through his body. Spatial ability. His eyes suddenly flashed. This was the second time he saw this spatial ability. The last time he saw it was from Emperor Chen. The battle left a deep impression on him. Emperor Chen's spatial ability gave him great trouble. People with spatial ability were almost inherently invincible. Apart from the legendary time controller, people with spatial ability were the most terrifying. He defeated Emperor Chen previously, because his speed was much faster than Emperor Chen. For ordinary people, it was impossible to defeat Emperor Chen who had the spatial ability, although in the end he efficiently defeated Emperor Chen. However, the strength of the spatial ability was firmly remembered in his mind, and he dared not underestimate it at all. Any such masters could shock countless people. At that time, Emperor Chen had only grasped some superficial knowledge of spatial ability. The person in front of him made the Star Beast avatar, who was now in the realm of Great Sage Realm Great Perfection, felt terrified. Not only that the long sword chi did not cause any harm to him, but on the contrary, the man in black robe moved and grabbed Yi Shiwen. He dodged Yi Ziwen's wielding sword chi, and caught Yi Ziwen's body. This is spatial ability. Yi Shiwen stomped beneath his feet. Immediately, his figure surged backward to avoid the grasp of this big swipe. In his last fight with Emperor Chen, Yi Shiwen was not completely clueless about these spatial ability users. He was hiding his physical body in the subspace. It appeared to be in front of Yi Shiwen, but it was not. So his hand could directly pass through Yi Ziwen's sword chi and thrust it towards Yi Shiwen. So this kind of spatial ability was the most difficult to deal with. I didn't expect you to have some insight, little brat of true martial school. The black robe smiled faintly, and did not take the failed attack to heart, or that he did not show any esteem for this Yi Shiwen of the Great Sage Realm Great Perfection who was in front of him at all. To him Yi Shiwen was only a warrior who could be slaughtered at any time, nothing to be bothered about. Southern Dipper. Yi Ziwen's jaw dropped widely and came up with these two words. The dress of the black-robed man in front of him could not be more familiar. It was the dress of the members of Southern Dipper, who was the Big Dipper's rival for many years. Although he had not had many encounters with Southern Dipper members, he knew a lot about them. After all, they were opponents of Big Dipper for many years. It was impossible not to know. He just did not expect to meet someone from Southern Dipper here. Why did the master of Southern Dipper appear here? Yi Ziwen's heartbeat became nervous in all of an instant. If it was just the ordinary Southern Dipper constellations, or even the constellation's lord, he did not worry much. He was confident that he could deal with it. Even if it was him, he was confident in forcing it to retreat, let alone this Star Beast avatar. However, obviously this person was far above the constellation's lord level that he knew about. This was a terrifying power that transcended the Great Sage level. Suddenly, the man in black robe in front of him disappeared. The next moment, he appeared behind Yi Shiwen. He stretched out his right hand and grabbed towards Yi Ziwen's neck. This was to cut off his neck directly, which was terrifying. This was not how fast he was because he penetrated the space directly and came behind Yi Shiwen, which Yi Shiwen was simply defenseless against. This was one of the most terrifying skills of the spatial ability, but this was only one of them. Spatial ability was so rare for so many years, but was still famous. It was built on the powerful combat capabilities of those with spatial ability. However, despite his agility, Yi Ziwen's speed was faster. In an instant, at the moment of imminent death, Yi Shiwen turned into a golden light and disappeared into the sky. In the next second, he appeared in the midair and stared coldly at the man in black robe in front of him. Both of their speeds were approaching their limits. This was like a beam of light, which disappeared in an instant, but both sides were completely different in their speed. The speed of the man in black robe was based on walking in space. In the sublayer space, the spatial distance might become longer, or might become extremely short. So his speed was incomparable. However, Yi Shiwen was pure speed. His physical body had exceeded his limit, tearing the vast sky. This was the purest speed. It looked very fast. In fact, it was completely different. That's fast. The tone of this black-robed man finally changed to being a little shocked. If Yi Zaiwen's reaction was fast, then now this was enough to prove how fast Yi Shiwen himself was. He had hardly seen anyone who could achieve this level with pure speed. Chapter 726. Southern Dipper's Motive. It's really interesting. I didn't expect that there would be such interesting people like you in true martial school. You even know that we are Southern Dipper. The black-robed man said with a sneer. His voice actually became even more cold. It seems that true martial school really values this star beast. They still sent such a master to guard it in this situation. Yi Zaiwen's heart suddenly tightened. It was not the first time Yi Shiwen heard that this man mentioned the star beast, which meant that the other party knew about the star beast. Yi Shiwen did not reveal his identity of Big Dipper. Judging from the other party's tone, he didn't seem to be targeting Yi Shiwen. Then there was only one possibility, which was the star beast. Although it seemed irrational, it didn't mean that it was really impossible. Although the star beast matter was a secret, ancient and huge organizations such as Big Dipper and Southern Dipper that had existed for countless years might know about it. The star beast's invasion of the true martial domain was a buzz at that time. It led to the decline of true martial school directly. This matter had passed for many years, so many people might have forgotten it. Even the true martial school masters might have forgotten the past. Many masters did not know why it led to the decline of true martial school as well. They only knew that a great battle in the past caused many senior predecessors to fall, which directly led to such an event. But it did not mean that no one else knew about it. The existence of the two organizations, Big Dipper and Southern Dipper, was far beyond everyone's imagination. They definitely existed before this star beast invaded true martial school. And they were very huge. Therefore, it was not surprising that the Southern Dipper people knew about the star beast's existence. Although Yi Shiwen did not know why they came for the star beast, he was now certain that this mighty master was definitely here for the star beast. What is your motive? Yi Shiwen asked in a cold voice while frowning slightly, but his muscles were completely tense. The endless qi on his body condensed abruptly, preparing to fight at any time. This person in front of him was too scary. Yi Shiwen felt a long-lost danger vibe in this person. This was more like a beast's intuition. The beast intuition from Yi Zaiwen's star beast avatar. It was almost like the feeling that a sword would slash his head at any time, making him feel extremely dangerous at all times. My motive is very simple. This star beast has been locked long enough. It should be released to breathe some fresh air, right? The black-robed man said with a smile. What? Yi Shiwen was shocked suddenly. His motive is to release this terrifying beast. Yi Shiwen could imagine how terrifying it would be if the beast was released. Perhaps even true martial domain would be completely destroyed. This star beast had been sealed for countless years, so it had lost its horrifying strength. It could be said that it had weakened a lot, but the same was true for the true martial domain. It no longer had as many masters as the past when true martial domain was under the command of true martial school. At that time, even the transcendent realm masters were not a rare sight, or it was absolutely not a rare sight as it was now. If this beast was released now, it would really be a massive disaster. Ha ha ha, you really are a smart man. Release me and I will devour this damn true martial domain. I can pass you the power, and let you have a breakthrough to the transcendent realm without any problem. If I am not mistaken, you are still in half-step transcendent initial realm. Yi Shiwen was very shocked to hear such a conversation, but the star beast in the barrier was excited and roaring continuously, because it could leave this damn place finally. Yi Zaiwen's appearance previously gave it hope, but then Yi Zaiwen's words completely ruined its hope. It knew that it could not rely on Yi Shiwen to get out. It already gave up originally. It could only watch Yi Shiwen break through continuously with its blood and vital energy. But it didn't expect that things had taken a new turn now. Another person actually appeared now, which gave it hope to go out. It couldn't care so many things now, and listed all kinds of rewards and wishes. Although it often only acted by its own capabilities, it definitely did not mean that it could not understand human relationships. It was just that it didn't even bother to use any means of beating around the bush when it had absolute strength. But it had no choice at this time because this black-robed man was its only hope. Half-step transcendent realm. Yi Zaiwen's eye pupils shrunk slightly. Sure enough, this black-robed man was far more terrifying than he thought. The black-robed man just attacked twice, but Yi Shiwen was forced to evade with all his strength. This was not a strength that a great sage could possess at all. Yi Zaiwen's strength was already very powerful. It was enough to defeat Mu Xingjie a few years ago. In the recent years, Yi Shiwen had not been idle at all, constantly absorbing the blood and vital energy of this star beast. Although he still did not step into the half-step transcendent realm, it was just a matter of time. The current Yi Shiwen had enough strength to wipe out the entire Great Sage realm. Even a typical Great Sage Great Perfection realm wouldn't be his opponent. Even if the Mu Xingjie from a few years ago were to fight with him now, Yi Shiwen wouldn't even need that long time to defeat Mu Xingjie completely. There was no need to use special techniques or anything like that at all. But when he was facing this black-robed man, he had an instinctive sense of urgency. It was as if a sharp blade could cut off his head at any time. Don't you know what it means to release this beast? It may destroy the entire starry sky and world, scolded Yi Shiwen. How many lives would be suffering? Can Southern Dipper bear such karma? Everyone knew the dangers of the star beast. It fed on the stars and the world. Every time it devoured the world or the stars, there would be countless casualties. Many lives would be in danger. If Southern Dipper released such a monster, even an influential organization like Southern Dipper, which had existed for countless years, would be torn to pieces when facing everyone's raging fire. No one could face such raging fire. He would be a public enemy. The public's will was God's will. Who could go against God's will? It was simply impossible. Many lives would be in danger. Ha 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 ha. What does that have to do with me? What do I have to do with you, humans, dying collectively? You humans are like bugs in the sewers. The more they multiply, the more they die. Only some would die anyway. Why is it worth fussing about? The man in black robe said lightly, but what he said sent shivers down Yi Zaiwen's spine. Yi Shiwen was extremely shocked. If all are dead, then this world will be serene. It's for a serene world. Could it be that this black-robed man in front of me is not a human being? Is he from the Beast clan or Demon clan? What other clans are they? A variety of clans with wisdom flashed through Yi Shiwen. In this world, there was not only the human race with wisdom, just that this piece of starry sky was led by the human race. In fact, before the human race became the leader of this starry sky, this place was originally ruled by the native clan. As a matter of fact, the human race was the latecomer, but the native clan had long disappeared after some time. Only rumors of the birth of the native clan were heard occasionally, but they were just rumors. Very few people had really seen the native clan. In addition to the native clan, there were also the legendary Beast clan and Demon clan. They were all well-known clans. Even in the starry sky under the leadership of human beings, their names were still existing. Which clan does this black-robed man actually belong to? Listening to his tone, he seems to have extraordinary hatred for human beings, and wish that all human beings would die. Ha ha ha, I love this the most. Just leave it to me. I will help you destroy this damn world, and devour all the damn humans. They even dare to imprison me for countless years here. They are really tired of living. The star beast said, adding fuel to the fire. Let you go? Of course there is no problem. The black-robed man said with a sneer. I will only let you out if you become my slave and sign the master-slave contract. What? Damn. Who do you think I am? How dare you force me to sign a master-slave contract? Star Beast suddenly roared thunderously. This was utter humiliation for him. I am going to tear you to pieces. The so-called Southern Dipper can die too. Go and die. I must kill you all. Once the master-slave contract was signed, then it would become the slave of the black-robed man in front of it. The black-robed man could order it around. This was simply impossible for it. The black-robed man in front of it was just a half-step transcendent realm. During the Star Beast's peak period, he was just an ant who was not worth looking at all. This ant actually wanted to recruit him as a slave now. It was simply too deceiving. Even more terrible than the previous Yi Shiwen. AI, your power is too scary. If I let you out, I have no confidence to tame you. It is better to sign the master-slave contract first before talking. The black-robed man said with an evil smile. He didn't seem to bother about the furious star beast's threat. What's the point? Even if you are not willing to, it's just a little extra effort. It was nothing at all. Chapter 727. Terrifying spatial ability. However, we still have to deal with this interesting brat now. The black-robed man turned his eyes to Yi Shiwen. Yi Shiwen could feel the horrifying killing intent of this black-robed man in front of him. It was just like being stared at by an ancient vicious beast, giving him the urge to flee. If it was in another place, Yi Shiwen at this time might have already turned around and fled. It was definitely not a wise idea to face a half-step transcendent master. Worse still, he was not a general warrior, but a master having control of space law. It was common knowledge that the most unpredictable among the many laws existed besides time would be space. Space law was something even a great sage realm master had no way to get hold of. Among the masters at the same level, the masters who understood the space law were almost invincible. Spatial travel was a piece of cake to them. There was no way to defeat someone like that. To identify someone with space law talent in addition to being capable of utilizing space law at a very low level. The odds were only one such person among tens of billions of people. But now Yi Zaiwen's feet seemed to be taking root. Did he have the option to flee? For sure he didn't. If he dared to flee, then the black-robed man in front of him would definitely take control of the star beast. Although he didn't know what method the black-robed man would use to control this terrifying star beast. But Yi Shiwen felt the black-robed man had great self-confidence in his words. Yi Shiwen was worried that this might become the reality. If this star beast was still in full peak state, and not being held in the barrier, then this black-robed man would not dare to appear in front of this star beast. But the problem now was that this star beast was suppressed in the barrier. Not only its strength was greatly reduced, but it was restrained. Hence, the success rate of the black-robed man was quite high. Although Yi Shiwen did not know what the black-robed would do to make this star beast a slave of his. It was entirely conceivable that if Yi Shiwen really left, then allowing him to control the star beast would really destroy the entire true martial domain. This was not impossible, but very possible. By that time, not only the true martial domain would suffer, but the entire starry sky would be painted with death. From the black-robed man's words, Yi Shiwen was certain that the black-robed man was not a human being. His hatred for humanity was deeply rooted. And the most important thing was that Yi Shiwen could feel that the surrounding space was locked by his opponent. There was no way to flee at all unless he could defeat the black-robed man first. Yi Shiwen breathed out calmly with his gaze turning cold as he stared at this opponent. This battle was inevitable. There seemed to be no chance of winning at all. Half-step transcendent. Even though it was only half-step transcendent, it was already considered approaching the realm. There was a qualitative gap with Great Sage. Even his Star Beast avatar could not cross this gap. The gap between the Great Sage realm and half-step transcendent realm was indeed enormous. Even if there weren't a lot of half-step transcendent realm masters in true martial school, the number count was only slightly more than transcendent realm masters. If it was someone else, they stood no chance in this situation, but it might not translate similarly to Yi Shiwen. During this time, his original body had made a great breakthrough while the Star Beast avatar was not left aside idle. All these while he constantly absorbed the blood and vital energy of the adult Star Beast. He had also approached the point of breakthrough. If there was no sudden invasion of emergent school, he would only need a few more months to step into the half-step transcendent realm. Although it seemed to be a long time, the duration of a few months was not a big deal as compared with the difficulty of entering the half-step transcendent realm. He was really close to attain the half-step transcendent realm, so he might have the power to fight for a while. If he could take this opportunity to break into the half-step transcendent realm, he still had a chance in this battle. Of course, the most important point was that this was not his main body. Even if it was defeated, the loss was still within acceptable range. It would not be totally destroyed, so it worth the risk. Yi Zaiwen's eyes flashed, glaring in determination with a hint of profoundness that was only born when the universe was put to death. Yi Shiwen made his move. He ran the scripture directly and condensed a rippling mountain seal equipped with endless waves for mountains. Then he shot all of it to the black-robed man. Boom! The huge mountain range formed by the condensed rippling mountain seal had instantly crushed on the black-robed man. The firing speed of Yi Shiwen in the Great Sage Great Perfection realm was unimaginably fast. The speed could almost pull off afterimages. Boom! The huge mountain waves fell on the black-robed man. But it only appeared as though the offense only hit on a water surface. After the layers of ripples appeared, the mountain waves disappeared. Yi Ziwen's pupils shrank all of a sudden. His already grave expression was wringing out sweats. Although he had also already cultivated the inverting the ocean seal, it did not mean that the power of the rippling mountain seal was not great. On the contrary, among the 3 types of overturning the heavens seal, the 3 seals represented 3 levels and 3 distinct ways of power. Overturning the heavens seal represented rigidity, composed of the power of the utmost strength and utmost just energy in the world. A technique that focused on direct confrontation where all trickeries would not prevail in the face of it. On the contrary, inverting the ocean seal's power was supreme in being supple, while the overturning the heavens seal was rigid and supple at the same time. Fierce power was mixed in aside from being supple. However, in the process of switching between rigid power and supple power, it was difficult to really say which one was stronger. What was really difficult was transforming from the power of the utmost strength and utmost just energy into supple power that only existed after exerting explosive strength. Even Mu Xingjie suffered a loss from that rippling mountain seal, which represented the power of the utmost strength and utmost just energy in Yi Ziwen's current strength. However, this black-robed easily dealt with it by sending it to unique dimension. It was conceivable how terrifying a person with spatial ability was. Although the original Emperor Chen also had this ability, speaking of which was just a grasp of some fur, but it can be used to avoid, like this man in black robe is ordinary, and his understatement will turn his attack into invisible, which Mu Xingjie can't do at present. In this way, it means that Yi Ziwen's attack would not be able to hit him. This was the most terrifying fact. This seal is quite interesting, but this attack alone can't hurt me. The black-robed man chuckled with his eyes flushed gleaming more and more red as time passed. He took a step out, and appeared behind Yi Shiwen in the next second. He reached out his hand with visible vibration waves in the air that resonated a strange frequency. But it was indeed this vibration which led the space behind Yi Shiwen to be completely broken apart. The broken space formed a huge and long space blade, slashing towards Yi Shiwen. Sweeping flying fish divine technique. But he saw that the man in black robe finally chanted a simple and inscrutable mantra, as if he was putting on some ancient martial arts moves. Voila! The long blade of space struck Yi Ziwen's body instantly, as if it wanted to slash him into half on the spot. At the very moment when he was going to slash Yi Shiwen into half, he directly stuck through a group of golden lights with Yi Ziwen's figure disappearing directly. When Yi Shiwen appeared again, Yi Shiwen was already hundreds of feet away. This barrier was not that big, and the space that Yi Shiwen allowed to move was limited, since the barrier was set up by the Transcendent Realm powerhouse, so there was no worry about it being shattered. Although this black-robed man was powerful, he was only a half-step transcendent initial. He would not be able to contend against Supreme Schoolmaster Yi Shiwen had a lingering fear. Although he was already prepared for such speed, he still found that he still underestimated the speed of the opponent in the actual battle. Perhaps the half-step transcendent initial's absolute speed was not as good as his own. However, with unique dimension, there were wormholes that could connect places thousands of miles apart. In fact, there were many such wormholes in the unique dimension. This black-robed man only needed to use these wormholes to easily obtain speeds beyond ordinary people's imagination. The uphill battle continued. Bang! Yi Shiwen only felt that a terrifying force behind him swept down and pressed directly on him. He didn't have a chance to respond, and that force had already hit him. Boom! Yi Shiwen, like a falling meteor, blasted directly onto the floor, forming a huge deep pit. The deep pit was full of smoke. Poof! Yi Shiwen rolled over and spurted blood out with surprise in his eyes. The man in black robe stood where he was just now and made another move on him directly. He was again blasted away before he could respond. and the opponent started to go all out without holding back. If it was not Phoenix regeneration technique and Tyrant body protecting himself at the critical time, he should be long dead already. What a terrifying ability with no ways to guard against it. Yi Zaiwen's fear of this spatial ability was taken to the next level. He would most likely meet with more people with spatial ability in the future. If everyone was as scary as that, then it would be troublesome. At the same time, Yi Shiwen also took advantage of this precious short time to constantly use Phoenix regeneration technique to repair his injuries. You didn't die? The man in black robe was also surprised. He struck Yi Shiwen with all his strength, but Yi Shiwen didn't die. Although Yi Shiwen was seriously injured, Yi Shiwen didn't die. Chapter 728. Depressed black-robed man. It indeed surprised him a little. He was very clear about his strength. The strength of the half-step transcendent initial was enough to rank among the top masters. If masters of transcendent realm did not appear, he would be the top master on the spot. Just now he delivered a full blow with no reservation at all. After being hit by this blow, never mind a normal great sage, even the half-step transcendent realm masters like him would be either dead or seriously injured. Of course, the master at that level would not be so easily hit by him. Since his realm firmly dominated Yi Zaiwen's realm, he felt comfortable launching an all-out attack. However, if the opponent was in the same realm, there would not be much chance to launch this attack without any disruption. Although those with spatial ability were said to be invincible in the same realm, it might not be an absolute fact. Some monstrous characters could even suppress masters with spatial ability. In a battle with the same realm, he couldn't have enough time to charge for a full-out attack. Even in many cases he had to rush his move sets. So he knew very well how terrifying his blow was. At this moment, he noticed Yi Shiwen not dying, rather he could still sense Yi Zaiwen's vitality that was constantly recovering. Although there were some doubts about how Yi Shiwen did it, he still decided to kill Yi Shiwen as early as possible to be at ease. At this time he could only feel at ease by completing the master-slave contract as soon as possible and releasing this star beast. The barriers here were all arranged by the Supreme Schoolmaster of True Martial School. If there was a battle here, how could it not sense anything? If it was not because of the invasion of Emergent School, it would have already attracted a large number of masters from True Martial School to intercept the opponent. So although Southern Dipper knew that Star Beast existed, they didn't dare to make a move previously. No matter how strong Southern Dipper's strength was, only a singular unit was deployed. The black-robed man had no way to cope with a True Martial School's tyranny, especially in terms of Transcendent Realm Master. There were more than 10 of them in True Martial Schools. In the eyes of the Transcendent Realm Masters, the black-robed man was no different from ordinary little sidekicks. Killing him was just a piece of cake. He thought that the entire process was much easier than killing Yi Shiwen. Hence, the black-robed man didn't really want to take the risks. Although he felt that the Emergent School should be able to restrain True Martial School, there was no guarantee that no Transcendent Realm Masters would cross the void and come here. By that time, only death awaited him. So no matter what, the black-robed man must go all out and end the fight speedily. Despite the contemplation, it didn't slow him down in any slight. He dashed out and appeared in front of Yi Shiwen again. For him, crossing any distance in space had no resistance at all. He appeared directly in front of Yi Shiwen. A ripple was created. He directly activated another sweeping flying fish divine technique and launched an attack towards Yi Shiwen. His pale palm burst with an unimaginable strange ray. If one were to look closely, the ray was not purely made out of light, but a series of strange text. It was a remarkable ancient ability, something that didn't belong to the human clan. Sweeping flying fish divine technique fell down towards Yi Shiwen from the sky, causing a strange wave of interference in the space. The space seemed to be cracked by something, torn in all directions. As the crack grew larger, the more destructive it was. The black-robed intended to completely eliminate Yi Shiwen in the chaos of space. Yi Shiwen yelled out loud. A pair of storm wings attached at his back fluttered quickly, enabling him to evade this attack in a swoosh. Before he could establish his footing, the storm wings behind him fanned again. With storm power channeled into his body, he stormed out in another direction. At the moment when he fled, the black-robed man had already arrived in pursuit. The previous space Yi Shiwen was standing on just now was shattered with space debris scattered around. The black-robed man pursued fiercely. It was a fierce battle in the barrier. Both of their speeds were extremely fast. At one moment, they both appeared at one spot. In the blink of an eye, they had traversed quite a distance. Having both of them engaged in a fierce chase battle was simply unimaginable. On one side was just a great sage, while the other side was a half-step transcendent realm. This battle was not equally matched at all. In the eyes of the world, a half-step transcendent realm was much more tyrannical than a great sage. Even in the realm of great sage realm great perfection, it did not make much difference. This was the same as half-step great sage's overwhelming advantage over sage realm. But now Yi Shiwen could escape the black-robed man's pursuit many times. If it was seen by an outsider, they would drop their jaws widely due to the sharp contrast in expectation. But for the two sides in the battle, they were both equally depressed. For the black-robed man, he was a half-step transcendent realm master, but he couldn't catch up with a great sage. Not to mention that he also possessed spatial ability. That was simply a disgrace for him. With all of that, he still failed to catch up. It was tantamount to a great irony for him. As a matter of fact, warriors with spatial ability were often extremely superior in body movement technique. No matter the body movement technique, it was still traversing through space. Hence, people with spatial ability would have the absolute advantage that no one could challenge. But even so, he still couldn't catch up with Yi Ziwen's speed, which made him curious about Yi Ziwen's movement technique. What kind of movement technique that even his spatial ability didn't allow him to catch up? He could completely imagine that if he was not a spatial ability user and not a realm higher than Yi Shiwen, then he would be long left behind at this time. It would be impossible to catch up with his speed. Thinking of this, he suddenly had a greedy idea on Yi Ziwen's movement technique. He now had a spatial ability, and already inherited a movement technique. In that precognition, his speed was already extremely fast. If he managed to obtain Yi Ziwen's movement technique, it was tantamount to adding wings to the tiger's one. In his case, if he were to get pursued by transcendent realm masters, he would not fall into disadvantage. Thus, he was determined to seize Yi Shiwen and draw out his soul. With that, he could learn any secret with just a glance. In addition to that, Yi Ziwen's powerful physical body and superb regeneration enticed him even more. It was all he wanted. He never thought his visit offered so many presents. Aside from having a star beast slave, he could even obtain these powerful skill inheritance. It was a fruitful adventure. Not only the black-robed man felt insulted and depressed, but Yi Shiwen felt depressed too. For him, speed was one of his strengths. Even though the black-robed man had spatial ability, Yi Shiwen was still slightly faster in terms of speed. If Yi Shiwen had the option to flee, Yi Shiwen merely needed to go in a straight line to shake off the black-robed man as time went by. This was all because of his superb speed. Also, he had been utilizing this means to escape a lot of pursuit from people stronger than him. But now he couldn't escape. If Yi Shiwen fled at this very moment, the star beasts in the barrier became his opponent's slave. In this case, for true martial domain, it would be a monstrous disaster. Moreover, the arrays were arranged by the Supreme Court to form a channel, which was originally designed to give them easy access to the restricted area. However, it encaged Yi Shiwen at this moment. There was not much space for maneuver, rendering him unable to escape from black-robed man's vision. In terms of absolute speed, Yi Shiwen was definitely faster than the black-robed man. He still had demon wings that was more powerful. It was worthy to be called the Demon King's movement technique. It might sound average, but it was remarkable. Yi Ziwen's speed allowed him to rush from one end of the barrier channel to the other, in just a split moment. Hence, Yi Shiwen held off a bit, and did not fully extend his speed. Once in a while, he was in danger of being caught up by the black-robed man. Yi Shiwen had almost no way to stay in one place, and was almost constantly fleeing. He really had no other way, but kept on fleeing. As long as he slacked a little, the black-robed man would hasten up his pursuit. A simple negligence would be death. Being bombarded by the black-robed man again, Yi Shiwen would not expect the black-robed man to give him enough time to recover from his injuries. Yi Shiwen could escape the pursuit only in the most peak state. With substantial damage, the pursuit would just happen, rendering an immediate death to him. The pursuit happened for more than an hour in the Celestial, but it did not end yet. The speed between the two parties could not completely surpass the other. The pursuit slowly transformed into a battle of endurance. Roar. The black-robed man's beast-like roar echoed. It seemed like he was extremely annoyed because he hadn't been able to catch Yi Shiwen. He disregarded everything and went straight towards the barrier. He had already thought about it. He couldn't go on like this. Even with another 10,000 years passed, he couldn't catch that Yi Shiwen. Is his speed fast? It is. That's almost the peak. He had never encountered a warrior faster than him among warriors in the same realm. Yi Shiwen was simply a freak. Yi Ziwen's realm was a tad bit lower than him, but the black-robed man definitely lost out in speed. The two sides did not incarnate any ultimate moves. Hence, not much consumption happened. Hence, the situation would not change even for another 10,000 years. The black-robed man simply disregarded Yi Shiwen and went straight to Star Beast. Chapter 729. The Star Beast's compromise. The black-robed man simply ran directly toward the Star Beast. He was originally here for this Star Beast. It was a surprise event to encounter Yi Shiwen here. Although he was very depressed about his failure to catch Yi Shiwen, it was better than persisting in the pursuit. He came in front of the barrier, opened his hands as he read out some ancient and inconceivable chants. The eccentric syllables chanted turned into talisman texts in the air, and even penetrated the barrier. It flew to the sky above Star Beast, and bombarded on the Star Beast as if they were meteorites. The talisman texts on the black-robed man's hand shone brightly, radiating the sky. It was so bright that the barrier couldn't even contain it, let alone the Star Beast. Roar. The Star Beast's body trembled frantically. The painful roar shocked the ground. Certainly the barrier sensed it. The original quaint talisman in the barrier suddenly radiated a strong light, suppressing this fanatical Star Beast. The Star Beast had no choice but to endure the attack of talisman words chanted by the black-robed man with no resistance. The existence of this barrier did not only extract the power of this Star Beast, but also suppressed the Star Beast. The original setting was perfect, but now it had become a good helper for the black robe. No wonder this man in black-robed man was so confident that he was not intimidated by the Star Beast at all. He was very confident that he could tame this Star Beast in this manner. Yi Shiwen saw it clearly on how the black-robed man utilized his secret spatial ability to infuse the talisman text and syllables into the barrier. Otherwise, with his strength, it was impossible to overcome the barrier. As a matter of fact, the barrier not only suppressed the Star Beast internally, but was also very solid on the outside. Even a transcendent realm master couldn't break the barrier. After all, many senior masters of True Martial School teamed up to seal it, so the members of True Martial School were not worried about having no transcendent realm master to protect the base. Even if a transcendent realm master wanted to break this barrier, it would be challenging and take a lot of time. That would allow time for True Martial School to come in aid. So they were very relieved. But they did not expect that there would be a strange black-robed man with a spatial ability who could come and enslave the Star Beast without disturbing the barrier. And the most important thing was that even if True Martial School noticed the changes here, it was useless because they were held back by the experts of Emergence School. The black-robed man definitely utilized the timing well. Yi Shiwen saw it clearly. A huge scroll gradually spread out gradually in front of the black-robed man. This was an indescribable feeling. It gave off a sense this was beyond the Great Sage tool. Yi Shiwen didn't know what was the specific level of that magic tool. At this time, Yemo was not around but was with Tianyuan Mirror and the main body. Since the main body was far away from Star Beast Avatar, so Tianyuan Mirror and Yemo followed Yi Shiwen. After all, compared to Star Beast Avatar, his main body was more important. Yi Shiwen could withstand Star Beast Avatar being exploded, but absolutely could not accept the fall of this main body. Even though having the existence of Star Beast Avatar was like the second chance for the main body, it was not acceptable for Yi Shiwen to have his main body die in battle. After all, the strength of his main body was far less powerful than Star Beast Avatar. Hence, the main body needed the Tianyuan mirror more. If Yi Mo was here now, he should be able to see at a glance what magic tools this was. The Avatar opened his magic sensing eyes, and saw the spirit of Star Beast gotten absorbed by the scroll. Yi Shiwen didn't understand what the master-slave contract was, but he still knew that if part of the Star Beast's spirit was sealed onto this scroll, it would become the black-robed man's slave. Roar! 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 The Star Beast roared in pain, snarled in anger, and was also terrified at the same time. It could feel that the inexplicable talisman text penetrated into his body, and the scroll even wanted to suck its spirit out. Then, it would be sealed onto that scroll. The Star Beast had never felt so alerted previously. Even when it was sealed into the barrier before, he did not feel a sense of danger like this. After the war, a large number of true martial schoolmasters died, and the rest of them had no ability to deal with him. They could only seal him like this. At that time, there was no such feeling of dying, but now there was such a feeling. Although it knew that even if that part of the spirit was sealed onto the scroll, it would not die. But this was even more uncomfortable than death. It would become the black-robed man's slave, which was even more uncomfortable than killing him. It was like one day a person becomes a slave of an ant. That was how it felt. This man in black-robed was just a half-step transcendent realm. If the Star Beast was in its peak period, it would not even put him into its heart at all. Not to mention the peak period, even if the current Star Beast after countless years now could pinch this black-robed man to death, if there was no barrier. Its hatred for this black-robed even surpassed that of Yi Shiwen previously. It was raging in flame. However, no matter how angry it was, it could not break free. There was not only the scroll sucking in its spirit, but also the barrier's repression of him. He couldn't even move where even turning over would cause the barrier to be activated. So it could only feel that part of its spirit being extracted without being able to do anything. This feeling made its calm and brutal heart start to feel horrified. If its spirit was really drawn out, he really would become a slave to others, living under others' command. If it was a peerless master, it could still accept it. But it was just a man whom it did not put in his eye, a half-step transcendent realm who even dared to enslave him. No, I can't allow this to happen. Yi Shiwen didn't know what the black-robed man was going to do, but he knew this shouldn't go on. If the black-robed man was allowed to continue, the black-robed man would be able to enslave this Star Beast. By that time, true martial school would be in big trouble and meet its destruction. At this time, if Yi Shiwen wanted to escape, there was still enough time. Although the black-robed man imprisoned him in a barrier, he just needed time to break the barrier, and he would be able to escape. He didn't have the time to break the barrier due to the tight pursuit by the black-robed man just now. But there was enough time now. Could he escape? Certainly not. No way. Yi Shiwen needed to stop him. Yi Shiwen gritted his teeth. As he was about to do it, the Star Beast's roar came surging into his mind. It was a voice transmission, and he sent it directly to Yi Ziwen's mind with telepathy. Help me kill him, help me kill him. Yi Shiwen was stunned. He didn't even think that the Star Beast had turned to him for help at this time. It seemed that the talisman had pushed it to the extreme. Otherwise, with the arrogance of this Star Beast, how could it ask for Yi Ziwen's help whom it kept looking down upon? Yi Shiwen originally wanted to stop the black-robed man, but now with the Star Beast spoke as such, Yi Shiwen was not in a hurry. Anyway, there was no way for the black-robed man to suck the spirit of Star Beast immediately. Although the black-robed man used special magic tools, his own strength was far worse than that of Star Beast. Hence, even this time Yi Shiwen could already see the difficulty on his face. Even Yi Shiwen could feel that the black-robed man was trembling slightly at this time. And he was obviously in an extremely difficult struggle. It was conceivable how difficult it was to tame a behemoth like Star Beast with low-level strength. It was precisely because there was no way to extract the spirit successfully in a while, so Yi Shiwen was not in a hurry. But you also know that I am not his opponent at all, Yi Shiwen said indifferently. He was quite helpless against that black robe, even though he really wished to kill the black-robed man. This maniac wanted to destroy the world. However, he didn't have a good impression on the Star Beast who had caused heavy damage to true martial school. Yi Shiwen really wanted both of them to kill each other. Even if I want to stop him, there is no way at all. Yi Ziwen's tone was quite leisure, but only he knew he definitely needed to stop the Black Robe Man at all cost. Of course, he wouldn't let the Star Beast find out about it. I give you strength. I will give you strength. Don't you want the blood and vital energy from me? Then take it all. As long as you help me put this bastard to death, strangle him or whatsoever. How could I be willing to be a slave? This damn bastard. Star Beast growled. It had already gone mad. Previously, as Yi Shiwen wanted to extract the blood and vital energy from him, he was resisting every moment. It didn't want Yi Shiwen to absorb it so easily. However, in the face of Black-Robed Man's threat, it decided to compromise. He rather let Yi Shiwen absorb some part of its blood essence, but it would not want to be a slave. It would rather die than to lose its freedom. There was a hint of pride flowing in his blood. It would rather have a prideful death, rather than become a slave to others. Okay, I'll help you once. Yi Ziwen's eyes lit up suddenly and said so. Chapter 730. Sinister Star Beast. Yi Shiwen certainly needed to stop the Black-Robed Man from enslaving the Star Beast. If he really succeeded in enslaving the Star Beast, then it certainly would be a huge disaster for true martial domain. Whether Star Beast could help him or not, he would try to stop. However, even if he made a move, he would not necessarily be able to stop the Black-Robed Man. After all, the opponent was off half-step Transcendent Realm. The opponent's strength was more powerful than him. Even though he escaped from the opponent's pursuit, he did not dare to underestimate the opponent's strength. In other words, he should have faced his opponent in full alert. But now that this Star Beast was willing to contribute his own blood and vital energy, the situation became completely different. If Yi Shiwen could step into the half-step Transcendent Realm in one fell swoop, then there was a chance to fight with Black-Robed Man. Previously, he was still thinking about how to use this battle to complete his breakthrough. Now it was impossible to think about it. He was pursued with no chance of fighting back from beginning to end, let alone use this opportunity to break through. If the opponent was just an average half-step Transcendent Realm, he could still try this method. After all, Yi Shiwen was proficient in speed. If he didn't die in one hit, he could quickly dodge away for a speedy recovery. With that, he wouldn't die in battle. If that process lasted a long time, Yi Shiwen would have the opportunity to step into the half-step Transcendent Realm. However, the opponent had spatial ability with incredible speed. Never mind having a chance to catch a breather, and later on contend against the opponent. If Yi Shiwen were to be a little slower, the Black-Robed Man would be able to catch him and kill him. There was no doubt that if half-step Transcendent Realm Initial was divided into different levels, this Black-Robed Man was undoubtedly at the strongest level. The Black-Robed Man was so terrifying that it could restrain Yi Shiwen to such an extent. Of course, Yi Shiwen himself was even more incredible. Luckily, he was already at the peak of Great Sage Realm Great Perfection, which was formidable in this realm. If not, he would have died long ago. Both were just mortal where the pursuit could only go on for so long. But originally Yi Shiwen just thought of launching a suicidal attack to defeat the Black-Robed Man. With the help of Star Beast, naturally the odds became better. And on the other side, couldn't the Star Beast see it? Although it was grumpy, it was definitely not a fool. On the contrary, the long lifespan had given it many opportunities to adventure different things in life. It was already a sly fox. He could also see that despite Yi Shiwen and the Black Robe being opponents, it knew Yi Shiwen did not want to see the Black-Robed Man enslave the Star Beast. But the matter had come to this point. It dared not gamble. What if Yi Shiwen ran away? In its opinion, this would be inevitable. Launching a suicidal attack against this Black-Robed Man would be a one-way trip. If it was put into such a situation, it would definitely run away. It didn't know that this was just Yi Ziwen's avatar, not its main body. Yi Shiwen was willing to give it a go, but it didn't know. Hence, it didn't dare to gamble, and the most important thing was that you can't make a horse work without feeding it. Since it wanted Yi Shiwen to stop the Black-Robed Man and chase him away, it would at least let him have the same strength as the Black-Robed Man. As for increasing Yi Ziwen's strength, he was not worried. Yi Shiwen did not have the strange tricks and the magic tools. Never mind Yi Shiwen attained the half-step transcendent realm, he would not pose a fatal threat to it even if he attained transcendent realm. At the very least, there was no way to cause a fatal threat to him in a short period of time. It was quite confident in this. At least it was better than being a slave to the black-robed man now. For him it was simply a shame. It would be better to kill it. Quickly come to the place where you just laid the array. I will pass you the strength of my blood essence. Star Beast was still roaring in pain. Just now he hated the array of stealing his blood essence, but now it had become its life-saving channel. It must be said that this was extremely ironic. Yi Shiwen didn't hesitate. He immediately unfolded the demon wings behind him and flew quickly towards the arrays. At the moment when Yi Shiwen moved, the black-robed man noticed it, but it did not move. Rather, the black-robed man just looked at Yi Shiwen coldly. If Yi Shiwen had any signs of flying over, he would immediately make a move and murder this great sage that didn't know the limit. Fortunately, the arrays that Yi Shiwen had just placed was still a distance away from where the black-robed man was now. Seeing Yi Shiwen didn't rush over, the black-robed man didn't continue the previous pursuit despite not knowing what Yi Shiwen wanted to do. In his view, the most important thing at the moment was to enslave the star beast. Yi Shiwen and the like. Although Yi Shiwen was outrageous in the great sage realm, it was nothing in front of him. After enslaving this star beast, forget about Yi Shiwen. Even if the Transcendent Realm Master came, they would have to retreat. By that time, he would be among the top masters under the stars. When the time comes, his hegemony would succeed. Compared with this, there was nothing remarkable with Yi Shiwen surviving a bit longer. Yi Shiwen saw that the black-robed man had not chased him, and he was relieved. If the black-robed man rushed over again, he would start running away again. He knew that this was very unlikely since the black-robed man had to deal with this star beast first. Despite that, Yi Shiwen felt a little relief. Quick! Start it! The star beast inside the barrier heard the news from Yi Shiwen, and suddenly a burst of star power ran wildly. A burst of angry roar rippled across the seal's sight. The star beast's blood essence was forced out with a secret technique. It even rushed directly to the barrier where Yi Shiwen had set the array, surging directly into Yi Shiwen's body. Yi Shiwen suddenly felt that a huge and unimaginable force suddenly appeared in his body, and it was so powerful that it allowed him to break through the half-step transcendent realm in one breath. If Yi Shiwen were to absorb it by himself, it would take at least a few months, and now at this moment all of it had poured into his body. It was simply surreal. He suddenly felt his 5 vessels burst wide open, stretched out by a tremendous force, and Star Beast's violent energy sprang up in his body. Yi Shiwen scolded in secret. Damn, so shameless. Yi Shiwen finally realized that this Star Beast didn't have any good intentions at all. It did not instill the blood essence into him. It was rather a secret technique in Star Beast, which allowed it to madly improve its strength in a short period of time. But once this period has passed, its own body would be miserable. This was not the martial techniques they used themselves, unless it was forced to do so. Only they would burn the blood essence. Such martial techniques were generally used on the puppets they controlled. Star Beast used to be alone, but they do have similar martial techniques. The predecessors of Star Beast had engulfed many worlds. They would have many similar techniques like this. Hence, having this martial technique was not surprising. If Yi Shiwen just accepted this blood essence, he could probably climb to half-step transcendent realm late for a short time. The consequence was that his cultivation would be completely abolished later on. This Star Beast was planning to have both Yi Shiwen and Black-Robed Man suffer a great loss. It gave Yi Shiwen power, far more power than the Black Robe, and then used this power to abolish Yi Shiwen. Sure enough, it was a clever idea. Who could have imagined that in such a critical situation, the Star Beast could still come up with such a vicious scheme, which completely befitted a cunning character like a 1,000-year-old's fox. The irritability and rage were both just for show. Thinking of this, Yi Shiwen felt chills on his back. It seems that he had underestimated this old monster, who had lived for countless years. It had moved unhindered for many years, and was sealed in the end. However, it was not killed. It showed how strong it was. It had been too smooth all this while, making Yi Shiwen a little arrogant. It seemed as though those old fritters and old monsters were just like this. Yi Shiwen had constantly surpassed those cultivation. They all seemed not so strong. However, this lesson made him understand these strongmen who were unhindered in the world for countless years. They definitely not only had pure strength, but also possessed ingenuity. In other words, being strategic was also a part of strength. Yi Shiwen burst into a rage in his heart. He couldn't help but be angry. If he said that he made a mistake once, it was called careless. But he had suffered 2 losses in front of this sly star beast and made 2 mistakes. It was the same last time. Even though Yi Shiwen knew it was a loss and knew it was a demon seed, he had to force himself to accept it. After all, if he did not accept it that time, he probably would be directly killed by the star beast's spirit. That star beast would never allow this transcendent realm master to control its own existence. But now this time, speaking of it, even if Yi Shiwen knew it might turn up like this, he had to suffer the bitter end. He could not watch the black robe do whatever he wanted. But fortunately, despite the star beast being clever, it would not expect that it would miscalculate twice in the case of Yi Shiwen. The first time, it didn't know that Yi Shiwen had the mysterious space and Tianyuan mirror in his hands. In the end, the star beast spirit, which was very powerful for Yi Shiwen at that time, died in Yi Zaiwen's hands. Currently, history had repeated itself. Although star beast's cleverness allowed it to calculate many factors, it had never counted Yi Zaiwen's avatar was off star beast's attribute. It was just hidden with aura convergence martial art. No one could notice it. Although Yi Zaiwen's avatar was just a baby of star beast, it knew many secret techniques. There was a way to compress this blood essence into its body, and then slowly digest it. Not only would he not be injured by his endless blood essence, but on the contrary, he could use this power to quickly break through when this matter was over. Chapter 731. Breakthrough straight into half. Chapter 731. Breakthrough straight into half-step transcendence realm. No matter how treacherous it was, he would still have to submit to me. Despite this, Yi Shiwen was very angry and shouted, "Stupid old monster, you dare to conspire against me. I will definitely settle the score with you. Ha 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 ha. Damn human. Who do you think you are? You dared to make a move against me. Now everything works according to my plan. Fight him and you both will suffer a loss." Star Beast Avatar shouted proudly, thinking that its plan succeeded. He acted pridefully. "Isn't this human arrogant? You only make a few doodles on the barrier. It all ended up in my plan. I will let the 2 die altogether." It had calculated that Yi Shiwen would never leave. It had seen many people like Yi Shiwen in its countless years of life. Humans would fight to the death just because of their belief with no complaints about death. Countless human ancestors relied on their faith to launch war, which eventually ended into the current human domination now. The star beast devoured many stars, and it had seen many kinds of people. At that time, in front of the true martial domain, there was a group of fools who had confronted it, and it was sealed in the end. Countless people participated in it and sacrificed themselves. 4 star beasts who were short in numbers, they would not understand why. They spent most of their time wandering alone in the starry sky. Maybe they had not seen other clans in their lives. But no matter how treacherous the star beast was, in addition to not understanding the reason, it didn't prevent him from taking advantage of it. The star beast, who became more and more prideful, kept roaring. The transmission speed of its blood essence was getting faster and faster. The stronger the better. With that, I can only get rid of this damned black robe man. Of course, it would not transmit all blood essence without limitation. Blood essence were naturally nothing at all during his peak period, but it was still very valuable to the star beast who had ended up to this point. It knew that this barrier was constantly drawing the blood essence of its body. When it had no blood essence, it would be its death. Hence, it could only focus on preserving and waiting for an opportunity. It might still have a chance to leave. This time, it could be his only chance to flee. It could only wait quietly, and only then would it have the opportunity to gain freedom. By that time, it would destroy this damn true martial domain and destroy the world. But it didn't expect its conspiracy actually proceeded with Yi Zaiwen's plan. He thought, "Come on. Give me more. I will use this energy to send you to your demise too. Half of Yi Zaiwen's anger was real anger, and the other half was just an act to let the star beast transmit more blood essence. For him, these blood essences were the most valuable supplements. What exactly was blood essence? Blood essence was the most precious part of all the blood in the whole body. The average person did not have much. Only the warrior who persisted in cultivation could continuously refine the blood into blood essence. But even if this was the case, no one could condense all the blood in the body into blood essence, because the standard of blood essence would continue to increase. The blood spat out by Sage Realm Master casually for legends was blood essence. No matter how powerful the person was, the blood volume in the body was relatively limited. For anyone, the blood essence was a big supplement. If someone else obtained it, they would need to continuously refine it or assimilate it via medicinal pills. However, for Yi Zaiwen's avatar, whose physical body was Star Beast type, there were only subtle differences that could be ignored. Even if there was only a little bit of essence blood on Star Beast with an unknown power realm, it would still be a big supplement for him, even when the amount was minute. Not to mention, there was so much blood essence. At this moment, Yi Shiwen did not dare to fully assimilate everything, but only absorb part of it. All the leftovers were sealed inside his body. When another breakthrough was needed, these blood essences would become his best helper. Yi Shiwen growled continuously, like an ancient beast. His eyes turned red because of the stimulation of this unimaginable volume of blood essence. The Star Beast's blood in his avatar began to boil. Awkwardly, he started to show a vague beast pattern behind him. But the Star Beast didn't care. He didn't even think that Yi Shiwen would have a Star Beast's physical body. He only thought it was because of the changes after receiving Star Beast's blood essence. This was also normal, just that no one had done this before. The strength of Yi Shiwen was increasing, and he kept pressuring the barrier toward half-step transcendent realm. Although his original strength had already reached the Great Sage Great Perfection, which was the highest peak that this power realm could achieve, there was sign of a continuous breakthrough. It seemed that he was approaching the breakthrough to become the half-step transcendent realm. Suddenly, at the most critical time, the black-robed man finally realized that something was amiss. He could not see what Yi Shiwen was doing. He did not know that Star Beast was sending its blood essence to Yi Shiwen. However, Yi Zaiwen's soaring roar caused him to be vigilant. He didn't put Yi Shiwen in the eye, because Yi Shiwen was definitely not his opponent. If he dared to come and interfere with him, it would be a dead end. Therefore, he put Yi Shiwen aside. However, Yi Zaiwen's aura became stronger, approaching the state he was alerted to. At this time, although he didn't understand what happened yet, he just guessed Yi Shiwen channeled a secret technique. This was absolutely intolerable to him. This was related to his heroic dominance, and he must not suffer setbacks because of this. The black-robed man desperately attempted to enslave the Star Beast. This situation was his best opportunity. When the Emergence School and True Martial School settled their winners, there would not be such a good opportunity no matter which side won. This was an once-in-a-thousand-years opportunity. He would never give up, neither would he allow anyone to disrupt his plan. He dashed forward, and the surrounding space formed a strange ripple. He traversed indirectly. When he came out, he had already appeared in front of Yi Shiwen. He swooshed down his pale palm. It was another sweeping flying fish divine technique. It was so abrupt as the palm bombarded downward from the horizon, desperately hunting down Yi Shiwen. He temporarily stalled the process of absorbing Star Beast's spirit, and devoted everything to kill Yi Shiwen. Without the bulk-robed man's manual control, the secret scrolls were not strong enough to absorb Star Beast's spirit, and even form a stalemate with Star Beast's spirit in midair. Even though it was dragging Star Beast's spirit, the speed was not the same as before. It could only be regarded as the speed of the turtle. Ha 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 ha. The Star Beast burst out with laughter. It was very proud. Sure enough, everything goes according to my plan. With Yi Shiwen fighting against the black-robed man, all his cultivation will be abolished too. Fantastic. You dared conspire against me. Just die. Yi Shiwen didn't have the heartfelt mood of Star Beast at this time. He also experienced 100 battles. His hunch was pretty accurate. Almost at the moment when the black-robed man attacked him, he immediately felt the danger. He couldn't confront the black-robed man face to face. He needed time to absorb enough energy to break through to half-step transcendent realm, and some time to consolidate the extra blood essence. Time. Yi Shiwen needed more time. Storm wings behind Yi Shiwen suddenly started to fan. His body flew out like an energy mass composed of wind and thunder energy mass. Behind Yi Shiwen, the black-robed man simply did not stop the pursuit. He was more determined to kill Yi Shiwen now. He couldn't give Yi Shiwen enough time to break through. Otherwise, Yi Shiwen would be a fatal threat to him. Boom, boom, boom. The speed of the two was too fast, especially Yi Shiwen, which was faster than the previous speed. The two were like two lightning, which were constantly flashing in the sky. During the pursuit, the black-robed man activated yet another sweeping flying fish divine technique, which descended speedily. There were many punctured space holes in the air. The self-healing ability of space couldn't keep up with the speed of the two, and all of those came from the black-robed man. Yi Shiwen didn't confront him at all, but just constantly fled. He knew very well that he needed time. With enough time, he could break through the half-step transcendent realm, and subsequently defeated the black-robed man. Confronting him right now was merely courting death. The black-robed man seemed to be aware of this. He knew Yi Shiwen was just buying time. Hence, it was even more impossible for him to sit idle and let Yi Shiwen succeed. He had a hunch that it might end up becoming a big trouble. This was his first time feeling his own speed was slow. He once used to crush others with speed. In the same realm, many opponents had their speed far inferior to him. Those that were defeated remained a high number. If you have the guts, stop fleeing. Let's have a good fight. Although the black-robed man felt anxious in his heart, his tone was still quite emotionless, as if he had never put the current situation in his heart at all. Stop. Hee. Yi Shiwen sneered and said, "You think I don't know what's your idea? I advise you not to think about it. If you want to fight, we will have a great fight later on." Storm wings behind Yi Shiwen kept flapping. He could feel the blood in his body had boiled. A feeling that the physical potential was unlocked came into the heart. He knew that there was only a little bit left. Ha! Yi Shiwen screamed loudly. The energy in his body that was stagnated suddenly went into turmoil, boiling intensely. The black-robed man's face instantly turned sour. He was too familiar with this power and feeling. Half-step transcendent realm. Chapter 732. Talented bloodline of the Great Star Beast. Although it was only half-step transcendent realm initial, the black-robed man had been in this realm for many years, so he was already familiar with this power and this realm. As Yi Shiwen escalated to the half-step transcendent realm, it meant that the prey that was constantly fleeing like a minute ant originally in the black-robed man's eyes was now on equal standing ground. The black-robed man's pupils contracted suddenly. His feet made an abrupt halt. His figure flew towards the back for a dozen miles. Sure enough, just the moment he fled, a fiery red hand suddenly came down from the celestial and swooshed down. The position where he stood just now was caught and exploded, just like a page of paper. The entire space was wrinkled and then teared open. This terrible power frightened the people watching it. He was very clear that this was the power of half-step transcendent realm. Even if it was only half-step transcendent realm, it was far more powerful than Great Sage. Don't you just say you want to fight? Let's have a great fight. Yi Shiwen turned around and sneered again. The black-robed man had pursued him for very long. It was apparent how depressed he was. Now his cultivation had finally broken through. Is this how half-step transcendent realm feels? He could feel that the blood in the body is boiling. This was a completely different feeling from the breakthrough of his main body. His main body was of humankind. There was no special bloodline. When he cultivates, he has to separate the realm and the physical body. For every breakthrough in the power realm, Yi Shiwen only felt a great breakthrough in spirit. Yi Shiwen could feel a strong feeling in approaching the heaven way. So it was true that warriors practice martial arts to stay close to the heaven way, and the observing person scripture that Yi Shiwen cultivated was to reshape a universe in the body. However, in any case he would still need to attain perceptions of heaven way. But this star beast avatar was different. At the same time as the breakthrough of the realm, Yi Shiwen could feel that his physical body was also strengthened. The spiritual energy in this barrier was transferred to him in an instant. He was like a huge cocoon. The spiritual energy was the cocoon silk. He was like a crazy machine, absorbing spiritual energy fanatically to consolidate his realm. His body was also consolidated with this countless spiritual energy. This breakthrough was largely driven by adult star beast's blood essence to promote into half-step transcendent realm. However, Yi Shiwen did not attain any perception in the realm. It just appeared in his mind out of thin air, as if stepping into the half-step transcendent realm was like unlocking a lock. All the contents inside just came out at once. He found that in this star beast's physical body, whether it was realm first breakthrough or physical body breakthrough, the other half could keep up with it at the fastest speed. There was no hidden danger of a hasty cultivation breakthrough. The realm perceptions in these memories were all perceived by Star Beast in the past, and then passed on to the future generations with special bloodline power. When the descendant realm breakthrough reached a certain level, the various realm perceptions and the physical breakthrough would automatically follow. What a superior innate skill. It's definitely heaven's endowment, living up to the name of heaven's favorite. Most people could hardly imagine such advantageous criteria actually existed. Even star beasts slept all day long. Their cultivation could reach an unimaginable level for ordinary people. At this moment, Yi Shiwen really wanted to weep, thinking about the hardship of his own breakthrough. For every breakthrough, Yi Shiwen really tried all the ways. He thought of all the ways he could think of, but in the end it was just a breakthrough to the great sage. Worse still, he had to be mindful about the balance of various realms and cultivation. But this star beast avatar didn't need those at all. Realm and cultivation were not scruples for them at all. They would just need to move forward. No wonder the little wolf's cultivation was no worse than Yi Shiwen during the past, despite idly wandering around. They could keep up with Yi Ziwen's cultivation speed with no trouble. Yi Shiwen really wanted to say, "Heaven, you are too unfair." But this idea was brushed off in a flash. Although he did not have a super innate talent like Star Beast or Little Wolf, he also had something that no one else had. That was the mysterious space, which he had not yet known. What exactly was that mysterious space? So far, he could only feel that with more martial arts he deduced and the more energy he absorbed. The mysterious spaces area was expanding bit by bit too. Each expansion had enhanced his deduction ability too. When Yi Shiwen just obtained the coiled dragon palm previously, deducting each move would take a lot of time. However, if Yi Shiwen were to deduct a set of great sage martial arts, he did not need to spend that long time. It could probably take just an hour to fully grasp it completely, unlike how it was in the past. With the help of the realm perception of the previous generations of Star Beast, Yi Shiwen stabilized the realm of half-step transcendent realm initial almost immediately. His gaze seemingly materialized as he targeted the black-robed man. The power in him was surging. An unprecedented superb power was flowing in his body and flowing in his blood. This was the bloodline power. This was the bloodline power where the main body had never felt before. I didn't expect you to break through to half-step transcendent realm. I really didn't expect there is a talent like you at true martial school. The black-robed man threw a cold gaze and spoke coldly. His anger was like a monstrous cold flame. Yi Shiwen had stirred up a lot of trouble on him. The good things that were planned early on could not be done now. In his mind, this was all caused by Yi Shiwen. If it were not for Yi Shiwen, how could he have encountered so many troubles? However, your good luck ends here. Do you think that the power inspired by the secret technique can be compared with me? Even in the same rank, I am also an invincible king. The black-robed man surged with the peerless murderous force, and his powerful momentum rose towards the sky. He wanted to put out his best and behead Yi Shiwen. He recognized that his speed was not as fast as Yi Shiwen. When he was pursuing Yi Shiwen, it was still not big trouble. At most he could not catch up with Yi Shiwen. However, if he was pursued, this might be a fatal flaw. Yi Shiwen was now qualified to sit on equal foot with the black-robed man. The black-robed man could not ignore Yi Shiwen at all as he did just now, and let Yi Shiwen do as he pleased. If the black-robed man dared to do this, Yi Shiwen would let the black-robed man regret forever. His only option was to fight with Yi Shiwen and kill him. In this way, all problems would be solved. Yi Ziwen's continuous escape just made him very depressed. Now, as Yang Ming decided to participate in the battle, this fitted his plan. In his view, he was the invincible king in the same realm. He would not lose to anyone even if it was tough. The black-robed man stormed out. The speed was so fast that he penetrated the space directly. In the blink of an eye, the black-robed man had rushed to the front of Yi Shiwen. This time Yi Shiwen did not escape but confronted face to face. The unparalleled speed brought a terrifying and imposing momentum. His sweeping flying fish divine technique instantly blasted out, instantly tore the space in front of him. The king among the same rank? I want to see how strong your spatial ability is. They all say that the spatial ability is invincible in the same rank, but I don't believe it. Yi Shiwen smiled. He was fearless. Through his experience with Emperor Chun, he had some confidence with spatial ability users. Yi Ziwen's speed almost goes to the point of leaving a residual image. He had incarnated in the rippling mountain seal. Huge mountain range formed in the air and swooshed down. It crashed into the sweeping flying fish divine technique. Boom! A terrible explosion exploded from the center where the two met. The terrible energy storm suddenly swept out. Both of them were too strong. If someone was watching by this time, they would be scared to death. Half-Step Transcendent Realm was not as powerful as Transcendent Realm Master, but they would still consider a master under this starry sky. Even if it encountered a master of Transcendent Realm, there was a great chance to escape. How terrifying it was for the two to fight together. There were barriers arranged by Transcendent Realm strongmen, especially the Supreme Schoolmaster. Among the many Transcendent Realm Masters, they were among the top experts. The barrier was naturally exceptionally strong, but the barrier was still like a piece of paper that was hit by the storm and the rain, twisting like crazy. It was as if it would be torn by this huge force in the next second too. The two did not stop their moves at all, and a new attack was launched. The two exchanged blows very quickly, almost like lightning. After images lingered in the air, they exchanged many blows in this short period of time. Huge energy waves spreaded out. The space was full of space cracks, all of which were torn open when the two fought each other. It was originally not that tragic when the black-robed man launched the attack alone. With Yi Ziwen's participation, it was as though the world would meet its destruction. The general space had the ability of self-recovery. Many legendary masters could also tear the space. It would be restored almost immediately. It was impossible to cause any irreparable damage. The larger the world, the harder was it to go to ruin. But now for both of them, there was nothing more important than beheading each other. Chapter 733. Black-robed man fled in disarray between both sides. They didn't even care about space cracks. Kill! The black-robed man roared, trembling in all directions, and his bodhi's vigor condensed into a terrible cyclone. With the cyclone enshrouded the black-robed man, he dashed toward Yi Shiwen. His movement was fluid as though he was the fish swimming in water. Yi Shiwen was like a demon god with wings sized like clouds fanning behind him, allowing Yi Shiwen to float in the air. Voila! Great lightning descended from the sky, and directly pushed back the black-robed man who rushed over. Voila! Demon wings behind Yi Shiwen kept waving, forming a sea of wind and thunder. These thunders were boiling in this sea of wind and thunder and surrounded Yi Shiwen. It was as if Yi Shiwen was in the Thunderfall Kingdom, and he would be the legendary Thunder God or Storm God. The black-robed man did not expect that Yi Shiwen was so tyrannical after the breakthrough. In his view, Yi Shiwen used his secret technique to successfully break through to half-step Transcendent Realm. Thus, he was determined that there was no way someone who break through via secret technique could match up to his own concrete breakthrough. Not to mention that he still had an endowment in spatial ability, which made him the elite among the same rank. He thought that the average person was impossible to compare with him. But he didn't know that Yi Shiwen was equipped with the body of Star Beast and the bloodline of Star Beast. What made it superior was that Yi Shiwen could quickly stabilize the realm and body cultivation after breakthrough. But now as Yi Shiwen got stronger after each exchange of blows, The black-robed man had finally realized it. In the end, he regarded Yi Shiwen as a terrifying enemy in the world, and more so an unprecedented threat deep down in his heart. Moreover, what troubled him the most was the Thunderfall Kingdom. All the spaces were occupied with thunder. As long as the black-robed man appeared, he would be targeted firsthand. The advantage of the ambush from spatial ability was lost. Moreover, these storm powers still hinder his movement slightly. In the fight between experts, any slight hindrance could be fatal. Thinking of this, the black-robed man was greatly troubled. But Yi Shiwen did not give him any chance to catch a breather. Walla! 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 Yi Shiwen waved the huge golden wings behind him wildly. The wind and thunder swept out like a dragon. It was like a thunderstorm raining from the sky. The endless thunderstorm was like the raindrops bombarding the black-robed man. Boom! A wild storm infused with thunder struck the black-robed man, and tore a small piece of his robe immediately. Although it was not a critical hit on the black-robed man, the power of storm and thunder paralyzed him slightly and thus slowed him down. After it was just a brief moment, it was enough for Yi Shiwen. Go to hell. Immediately, storms and thunders that stirred up in the sky bombarded the black-robed man. Boom, boom, boom. More and more thunder hit the black robe, and he was in disarray. The thunderstorms were great in number. Despite not being in a strong intensity, it was too numerous. It bombarded like heavy rain in an instant. The black-robed man had an incredible movement technique, and had a rapid spatial ability, moving like a bolt of golden lightning. However, Yi Shiwen's 2 pieces of demon wings were like 2 huge pieces of golden clouds. The range was so wide that the black-robed man couldn't escape at once. The black-robed man was not severely hurt, but he was in disarray, making him quite depressed. And most importantly, Yi Shiwen continuously strengthened storm power to bombard all the spaces, making him unable to hide inside the space. Originally, the best way to encounter such a large area of effects attacks was to hide in the second dimension. In that case, the other party's attacks would become invalid, and there was no use at all. This was also one of the spatial ability's prominent strengths. A fair balance between offense and defense, rendering it difficult for ordinary people to deal with. But there was also a premise that the space could not be broken. Once the space was broken, the attack would directly fall on him. Although he could strengthen the space in front of him for defense, he would also expose his position at once. Yi Shiwen would definitely chase after him. Sure enough, he just hid in the space. 2 golden lights shot out suddenly. Yi Shiwen finally opened his eyes, and he finally moved. Along with the screeching of the wind, Yi Shiwen disappeared instantly. When he appeared again, he had appeared in front of the black robe. His storm power could not break the space reinforced by the black robe, but his body could. His body had such strength. Any kind of defense was nothing in front of his absolutely tyrannical body. A smile flickered in the corner of his mouth, and he finally captured the initiative completely. In the last battle with Emperor Qin, he was very depressed to find that he was almost always led by Emperor Qin, and there was no way to go about it. It was all because of spatial ability. Although the Golden Lion's ability did not originate from Emperor Qin himself, it made no difference. In the battle, he was almost passive at every moment, but he found a way to deal with this spatial ability too in the battle. That was to raise all the space with his Thunderfall Kingdom. With that, Yi Shiwen did not plan to evade or even escape at all. It was most effective since with him bombarding all the space and tearing them open, the advantage for spatial ability in terms of ambushes and abruptness would be completely eradicated. In this case, the threat of the spatial ability user was much smaller, and the initiative would slowly transfer to Yi Shiwen. Of course, this premise was that Yi Shiwen could confront his opponent face to face. If he had no foundation, there was zero chance at all like just now. Everything depends on his own strength. Yi Shiwen had instantly chased to the position of the black-robed man. He disregarded everything and launched his palm horizontally. This palm was seemingly collapsing the sky. It was fast and heavy, which cut off any chance for the black-robed man to catch a breather. The black-robed man wanted to escape from the spaces and dodge Yi Shiwen's terrible attack, but it was caught in Yi Shiwen's palms. Rippling mountain seal. Yi Shiwen screamed loudly. He had incarnated the technique unbeknownst to the black-robed man. A condensed huge mountain wave swooshed down. As the black-robed man recognized that he had no way to escape, he was forced to blast out the sweeping flying fish divine technique directly to resist it. Boom! A huge force instantly fell from his arm to his body, almost collapsing his physical body on the spot. The black-robed man went in panic as he quickly retreated to avoid Yi Zaiwen's attack. He knew that Yi Shiwen was able to withstand his attack without reaching a critical stage since Yi Shiwen was still in the Great Sage realm, giving him the knowledge that Yi Zaiwen's physical body should be strong. Up until now, he only really felt how horrible Yi Zaiwen's physical body was. It was not just tough, but a great terror. Although this was not the main body absence of the tyrant body, Star Beast's physical body was not bad at all. The strong physical body that could compete with the Dragon Clan enabled him to tear up all obstacles. The black-robed man's physical body was not bad at all. It was much more tyrannical than many human warriors, but it suffered in Yi Zaiwen's hands. What kind of character was Yi Shiwen? The physical body was his biggest strength. After suffering a loss, he dared not fight face-to-face with Yi Shiwen. Unexpectedly, this situation was completely reversed as time passed. Previously, the black-robed man was pursuing Yi Shiwen, but now he was being pursued by Yi Shiwen. This roller coaster-like feeling was similar to how it felt to fall from heaven and went all the way to hell. Now it was black-robed man's turn to delay the time. As long as the secret scroll completed the capture of Star Beast's spirit, he could carry out the last step of the work. When it was completed, he would have a terrible and unmatched slave. Yi Shiwen would be unmatched. But this was also the reason why Yi Shiwen must kill him. He could never allow the black-robed man to continue his plan. He must rush to kill the black-robed man before the Star Beast was enslaved. Otherwise it would be great trouble. If the Star Beast was released, the true martial domain would be destroyed. Yi Zaiwen's murderous intention flashed in his eyes. No matter what the reason was, this black-robed man must die. Yi Shiwen stormed out, turned into a golden light instantly, and pursued the black-robed man. He cut off any escape route the black-robed man could muster. An extremely horrible scene took place. Two people were in the pursuit. What a familiar scenario. It was just that the pursuer and the fugitive had exchanged their identity. The most terrifying thing was that Yi Shiwen swept his terrifying aura to shatter the space. Wherever he went, space collapsed extensively. He just couldn't give the black robe any room to escape. All of the spaces were completely destroyed. The black-robed man did not dare to hide in the collapsed space. Even if he had the spatial ability, he would not dare to stay in the collapsed space. Space was one of the most esoteric laws. The spatial ability used could only utilize the space but not control the space. Space was also an unpredictable thing for them. It was still an unpredictable heaven's might. They dared not stay in the collapsed space. Just like staying alone in a house that was about to collapse, they would inevitably be crushed to death. As Yi Shiwen continued to shatter the space, the black-robed man could only flee in disarray. Chapter 734. Obtaining a scroll. As the pursuit became more intense, the faster their speed was. The black-robed man tried everything to delay the time, but this was what Yi Shiwen could not tolerate. A stream of blood essence in him began to boil and burn. This was to temporarily improve his strength at the cost of burning blood essence. The average person would not do this casually, because the total amount of the blood essence in the human body was simply not enough. Who would simply waste them? But Yi Shiwen was different. He just obtained a lot of blood essence and energy from Star Beast. For him, it was nothing to consume of it. Even in a short time he did not care. He didn't have that time to allow the black-robed man to enslave the Star Beast. After burning his blood essence, Yi Zaiwen's speed had greatly improved in a short time. Although the duration of it would not be long, it was enough for him to catch up with the black-robed man who shuttled in space. Inverting the ocean seal, Yi Shiwen screamed, and a pair of golden wings flapped behind him. His figure rushed to the back of black-robed man. Yi Zaiwen's speed was innately faster than the black-robed man. It was just that the black-robed man's spatial ability was troublesome. Yi Shiwen was now like a fisherman. He kept protruding big hands on the surface of the water, trying to catch the fish that freely swam in the water. The black-robed man was the fish. It would be difficult to catch. Or more precisely, it was simply impossible to grasp it. So Yi Shiwen adopted drastic measures to set up the black-robed man, which was to directly shatter the space. After Yi Shiwen caught up with the black-robed man, he formed a huge ocean directly in the sky, turned into an ocean blue seal, and bombarded it on the black-robed man. The black-robed man had no idea that Yi Shiwen had suddenly improved his strength further, and the speed was suddenly increased to a great height. Although it only lasted for a while, it was substantial to be fatal and enough to make a difference. Yi Shiwen would be able to deliver a fatal blow during that short window. In the previous pursuit, the black robe lacked such a chance, so he failed in the end. Bang! The black-robed man didn't have time to react and was hit. Although inverting the ocean seal was not as strong as the rippling mountain seal, water had the distinction of running water and flood. Who dared to say that the flood was not strong enough? His body seemed to be broken apart at once. There was a big hole at the black robe. It was badly mutilated with blood splashed out. The white bones were vaguely visible. The black-robed man was almost dead. Although he was not dead, it was obviously fatal. He was seriously injured, and his body flew out directly. However, that also won a little time for him. The black-robed man had blood on the corners of his mouth, and his eyes were as fierce as a wolf. He looked at Yi Shiwen with a ruthless heart. As long as he enslaved the star beast as a slave, he would definitely settle the score with Yi Shiwen. Although Yi Shiwen couldn't see his expression and couldn't read his thoughts, Yi Shiwen knew the black-robed man wouldn't give mercy later, so he quickly rushed in for the kill. Since the black-robed man was injured, his speed was far from being comparable to his initial one. Even if Yi Ziwen's impact force made him fly out a short distance, there was no way to stop Yi Ziwen's pursuit. It's over. Yi Ziwen's tone was cold, without any sympathy. Facing such a madman who wanted to destroy the world, any means were needed. Every pore in Yi Ziwen's body was bursting with sword aura. Sword aura condensed into a long sword in the void, and it suddenly slashed downward. The vast sky was seemingly halved. Thwack! The black-robed man was frightened and wanted to dodge away. Despite him mustering all his spatial ability could do, he still couldn't completely avoid it. Moreover, Yi Shiwen dismembered the entire left arm completely. Even the entire half of the body was bloody due to the influence of Yi Shiwen's sword aura, almost to the point of decay. Yi Ziwen's sword aura was so overbearing that he almost chopped off half of his body. Ah! The black-robed man screamed and burned his blood essence fanatically. However, instead of attacking Yi Shiwen, he fled. He chanted an ancient and inconceivable spell. A space door appeared in front of him. This summon would have a certain amount of repercussion. With that, he rushed in the space door with no hesitation, disappearing without a trace. This happened too suddenly. Yi Shiwen had no time to react and was too late. It was not because he was too slow to sense the spatial ability. However, in front of this natural spatial ability user, Yi Ziwen's improvement in the perception of space due to cultivation upgrade was still lacking. This was a gap that talent brought upon. It would be difficult to make up. However, Yi Shiwen only had a little regret. He had already achieved an extraordinary feat if the star beast did not transmit a lot of blood essence and energy to him at the most critical time. Attacking the black-robed man was simply a suicide attempt. Right now, he did not only survive but delivered a fatal blow to the black-robed man. It was already a surprise. Naturally, he was overjoyed. After the breakthrough to half-step transcendent realm, he was still balanced in both offense and defense. Even if he encountered a transcendent realm, he still had a fighting chance. Looking at the scroll, the spirit beast's spirit was drawn out bit by bit. Yi Shiwen waited quietly. What are you waiting for? Destroy the scroll. The star beast saw Yi Shiwen fend off the black robe and quickly shouted. What he was most afraid of was that the spirit was drawn out and became a slave to others. He would rather die than getting into this state. Destroy it? Why should I destroy it? Yi Shiwen smiled coldly at the corner of his mouth. When he looked at this star beast, he didn't hide his killing intentions. He almost suffered 2 bitter losses in front of this monster, making him hate this star beast. Do you think I don't know what you want to do? You want me to die along with him and take advantage of the situation, said Yi Shiwen. It's whimsical and delusional. I want to see how you will end up in the end. How do you know? Star Beast finally understood that Yi Shiwen had seen through its strategy. No wonder Yi Shiwen was not willing to help him destroy the scroll. I knew it from the beginning. I feigned obedience to obtain the help of your blood essence and energy, said Yi Shiwen faintly. Human. You are despicable. Star Beast roared, his roar almost rippling across the sealed site. Many star beasts around heard the roar of the patriarch, and they could not help but shudder. Vile? How can I compare with you? Yi Shiwen smiled, but he was scolding in his heart. This star beast had lived countless years. Even if it was a fraction of their lifespan would be more than his. If someone was really deceived by this huge monster's appearance, thinking it was merely a no-brainer beast, then it would be a big mistake. It was sly like a fox. If it wasn't for Yi Zaiwen's fruitful adventure and various coincidences, he had already suffered a loss in the hands of such an old creature. Even so, he did suffer a big loss. The demon seed nurtured in his body. Hence, he would be really cautious around this ancient creature. Star Beast was suddenly stunned. Of course, it wouldn't think that if it didn't want to conspire against Yi Shiwen, it wouldn't end up like this. It would only be depressed and unwilling. It never thought that Yi Shiwen could break his conspiracy in such a short period of time. This was where he miscalculated, and where he was finally overturned by Yi Shiwen. You don't need to struggle anymore. I want to see the magic in these scroll, said Yi Shiwen. He knew the scroll only absorbed part of the star beast's spirit. The most important thing was that the process could only be completed after the sacrifice at the later stage and various complicated processes. The black-robed man had fled, thus the scroll would fail. Yi Shiwen closed his eyes and began to consolidate the half-step transcendent realm he just broke into. Although it was a quick fix, it was the Star Beast avatar breakthrough but not the main body. It could still provide some experience for the main body. Even if Star Beast kept screaming outside, Yi Shiwen wouldn't open his eyes at all. He knew exactly what he was doing. It was about another hour or so. With Star Beast's painful scream, a single strand of its spirit was sealed into the scroll. The scroll suddenly burst into a powerful light, illuminating the whole sky. In the light, countless talisman texts dissipated in it. It was very similar to the ancient talisman essays exuded by the black-robed man just now. Suddenly, a space door appeared in the sky, and the scroll plunged into the space door. A big hand in the sky suddenly swooshed down, and the space door was directly extinguished. With the space shattered again, the scroll fell directly into the big hand. The owner of the big hand was definitely Yi Shiwen. In Yi Zaiwen's hands, the scroll was struggling frantically. The countless talisman texts above were starting to burn, mustering all it could to break free from Yi Shiwen. However, Yi Shiwen would not let it escape. He snorted directly, and sent endless waves of spiritual sense to eliminate all the resistance coming from the scroll. Chapter 735. Chaotic world plunged in the flames of war. Although Yi Zaiwen's accomplishments in space ability were far from being comparable to that of the black-robed man, he had also entered the half-step transcendent realm anyway. It was more than enough to smother the revolt of a scroll. Falling into the hands of Yi Shiwen, and wanting him to hand it over? That was simply impossible. Yi Shiwen spread out the scrolls, and saw simple ornaments everywhere on the scroll. Yi Shiwen didn't know how many years ago that style was. It revealed a mysterious air. If Yi Mo was here, he would most likely notice some clues. If it was just Yi Shiwen himself, it would be far worse. His strength might be enough, but his insight wasn't. No matter who you are, from today on, Southern Dipper swears to fight till the end with you. Suddenly in the scrolls, a sharp spiritual sense akin to a sword suddenly plunged into Yi Zaiwen's mind. It went through Yi Zaiwen's spiritual sea. This spiritual sense was like a hot knife cutting through butter. It easily broke through all the defenses in Yi Shiwen. In the face of it, Yi Shiwen was as fragile as paper. In the spiritual sea, Yi Shiwen showed his influence and quickly mobilized the endless divinity to form layers of defense and shields. After breaking through the walls composed of hundreds of divinity, the fine sword finally disappeared. Yi Shiwen couldn't help but get a cold sweat and took a breath. He didn't understand where this fine spiritual sword was. The sword was probably just a piece of transcendent realm spirit. After all, it was very common to attach spirit to magic tools. Even Yi Shiwen wondered whether this spirit was from the legendary Southern Dipper Constellation Emperor. Although he had not encountered the Southern Dipper Constellation Emperor, he could speculate Big Dipper's strength and the strength of Big Dipper Constellation Emperor with his knowledge on the strength of many constellation lords. Similarly, it applied to Southern Dipper, who had fought against Big Dipper for many years. It must be a terrifying transcendent realm master. The situation just now was seemingly in imminent peril. If it was an average person, the spiritual sea would be torn apart, resulting in the victim to become a fool. It was at this time that Yi Shiwen really understood the horror of a transcendent realm master. It was not as simple as what he had guessed when he was in the Great Sage Realm. This realm was named after transcendent, which meant transcended sentient beings. It was not the ultimate realm, but in the eyes of the many warriors, it was already the same as the legendary deities. It was really thrilling just now. For the threats, Yi Shiwen didn't take it seriously. He wasn't scared. Not to mention that Yi Shiwen had Big Dipper as his backer, an organization that could compete with Southern Dipper for many years. True martial school were not cowards too. Southern Dipper was dangerous, but not so terrifying. Yi Shiwen just collected the scroll since it should have great use. After all, the Southern Dipper's man could rely on the scrolls to harvest Star Beast's spirit, thus domesticating the Star Beast into an obedient slave. It was probable for Yi Shiwen too. Even though Yi Shiwen didn't know the next step, he felt that he would be able to know one day sooner or later as he kept the scroll. By that time, with a Star Beast as a slave, he could really become one of the top experts under the stars at once. So he just sat idle and let the scroll extract Star Beast's spirit. Star Beast on the side witnessed the scene. What a pity. He was a sly fox. Of course, he understood what happened to Yi Shiwen in a glance. He wanted Yi Shiwen to suffer a loss during the fight with the black-robed man. He also hoped that the spiritual attack could turn Yi Shiwen into a fool. He did not expect that it would fail, and made him happy for nothing. This time, the Star Beast was really depressed. God is unfair. Star Beast growled secretly. After safekeeping the scrolls, Yi Shiwen didn't even look at this Star Beast, and went straight to the sealed site. He shouldn't meddle in this matter anymore. It was best to report to the top of the true martial school, and let them decide. The best solution was to send a transcendent realm master to safeguard the base. If Southern Dipper came again, most likely it would be transcendent realm masters. Such a master was not something that Yi Shiwen could deal with. However, this was just a guess. In his view, without these scrolls, Southern Dipper would not easily conquer Star Beast. Otherwise, they would long make a move in these many years. As a matter of fact, there would be no problem to enslave an average Star Beast. However, this Star Beast was obviously superior in strength. Even if it was sealed, it was far more powerful than ordinary people. Certain special props must be used. Otherwise, it was impossible for the black-robed man alone to get the Star Beast. After the scrolls were taken away by Yi Shiwen, he must have disrupted their arrangements. In a short period of time, the Southern Dipper probably wouldn't make any move. However, it was better off for Yi Shiwen to let the top level of true martial school decide on this matter. After all, Yi Shiwen couldn't know for sure. Currently, Yi Zaiwen's avatar first task was to find the main body. Only in Tianyuan Mirror could he quietly cultivate and consolidate his current cultivation. Moreover, he needed to suppress so much blood essence that he cheated from Star Beast. It was better to let Tianyuan Mirror suppress it, which could liberate his efforts into putting more fighting power. Thinking of this, Yi Shiwen flew straight towards the direction of true martial school, and he had to report this matter to the top of the school. On the other side, Yi Zaiwen's main body also had a long flight and flew into the Great Yu Empire. What was Yi Zaiwen's speed now? He had already attained the Great Sage Realm. His strength was not the same as when he started. Yi Shiwen spread his wing, and he could go wherever. However, toward the direction of true martial school, Yi Shiwen could see smoke everywhere and a chaotic scene everywhere. It was like the end of the world. Although the entire main battlefield was at true martial school, many masters collectively made their move in the south region. Although they no longer directly affect the nearby area, the entire ground was shaken due to the war. Many people were affected, houses collapsed, and various demonic beasts were stimulated by the violent fluctuations of the world's energy. The demonic beasts went downhill one after another, causing great danger. Every place had warriors of the south region sporadically hunting these demonic beasts, or the great empire of the South Wilderness was organizing the army to collectively put down some experts who took advantage of the opportunity to stir up troubles. All in all, this was basically a scene of chaos. Countless people were shivering in fear in this terrible change. Originally under the rule of true martial school, the South region was not completely peaceful. There were still some contradictions and frictions among the major empires. However, the overall situation was still manageable. True martial school would never allow the overall situation to be greatly ruined and destroyed. But now, after losing control, the entire South region was chaotic. Countless orders suddenly collapsed. The farther away from the true martial school, the more so it was. In many places where the emperor was far away, many warriors took advantage of the chaos. Many mischievous organizations were wreaking havoc too. Yi Shiwen continued the cleanse as he moved forward. His speed was really fast, his fighting power was strong. Even Great Sage Peak were not his opponents. No matter if it was those warriors who stirred up chaos or demonic beasts, Yi Shiwen reaped their lives before they had any chance to escape. In such a chaotic time, all the rules in the normal days had collapsed. To reorganize the rules, Yi Shiwen decided to use killing as a means to instill fear in these mischievous people. Not only was he doing this, but also some scattered true martial school disciples were doing it. They organized rescue operations and eradicated rebellious organizations. After all, the South region was the foundation of true martial school. It could even be said that the South region's prosperity had a direct relationship with their true martial school. Although many people looked down on these minute ants usually, they understood that they also absorbed many talents from these ants. The number of talents at true martial school was actually related to these civilians. If these civilians were slaughtered, true martial school had sustained a serious injury even if they really won the war. It would take a long time to recuperate. At this time, emergence school didn't send many people to stop Yi Shiwen and the others. They just increased the intensity of attacking true martial school. As long as they captured true martial school and killed those who resisted, the disciples of true martial school who were outside were nothing at all. These disciples would have no way to stir up any resistance. As for those civilians, emergence school would rule them in the future. Naturally, emergence school would not go for mass slaughter. What really angered Yi Shiwen was that a large number of barbarians took advantage of the chaos and actually invaded the South region. In the true martial domain, they were divided into 5 regions and 4 wildernesses. Below the South region, there was South Wilderness. Many barbarians lived among them, accompanied by birds and beasts, and were very barbaric. Their ancestors retreated into the Southern Wilderness after failing to compete with the ancestors of the South region clan. Due to the poor life condition in the Southern Wasteland, the ancestors of the South region clan did not pursue, letting them rest and recuperate in it, and slowly became a South barbarian clan. The relationship between the South region and the South Wilderness could be described as terrible. The barbarians in the South Wilderness want to get out of the South Wilderness from generation to generation and enter the more fertile South region to seize large areas of land. The barbarians had fought for countless years. It was a history filled with blood and tears. Originally, there was an emergence school in the South region. No one dared to have a second idea. However, as emergence school invaded true martial school in an all-round way, true martial school was too busy to take care of itself. Not to mention the entire South region, there were many forces in South Wilderness beginning to stir. Chapter 736. Raging fury, especially among the many South barbarian tribes. There were armored horsemen all over the place, and they pillaged everywhere. The masters in the barbarian clan had also begun to march into the South region. The barbarians would not care less about the outcome of this war. Even if True Martial School won, it would be a Pyrrhic victory. True Martial School would have no strength to stop them from plundering the South region. If Emergence School won, the situation would be tough for the Barbarian clan. They would face a stronger neighbor, so it would be better to take initiative and seize territories now. With that, they would have bargaining chips. Yi Shiwen gazed to a distance. A group of Barbarian clan warriors was chasing down a group of South region warriors. These Barbarian clan warriors were all dressed in animal skins, a full-fledged typical appearance in barbarian wildness. Each of them was tall and mighty. Their body exuded a formidable aura unlike the warriors in the South region. These South barbarian warriors had survived through the perennial fighting after all. Their living conditions were 10,000 times worse than the people in the South region. They had to fight for living space with many demonic beasts every day, which also made them very powerful. As far as the overall quality concerned, the South Barbarian was even stronger than the South region's masters. It was difficult for ordinary warriors in the same rank to fight against them one-on-one. However, the only thing that restricted them was their small population because they had to compete with many demonic beasts for living space all year round. Hence, many of their members had already died in battle before they reached adulthood, and they couldn't develop much further. Therefore, their population was relatively small. Hence, they were far from able to compete with the South region masters. In the end, they were firmly suppressed in the South wilderness for hundreds or thousands of years. Right now, many True Martial School's masters in the South region were in a war against the Emergent School's masters. They could even take care of themselves. Hence, it was the best timing for the barbarians to carry out their evil deeds. Each of the barbarian clan warriors in the sky was extremely powerful. They had tough-looking bone or bronze weapons in their hands. Each of their swings made the space shake violently. These barbarians were suppressed by the South region for many years with their civilization, having no way to leap forward. However, they had different ways to go about things. These bone weapons were most likely extracted from demon beasts. They were really sturdy. Damn these barbarians. In Yi Zaiwen's eyes, the barbarian clans who had close contact with demonic beasts all the time had fallen into thinking like wild beasts. They were cruel and violent. Yi Shiwen reaped the lives of these South barbarian masters who took advantage of the chaos in their invasion with no mercy. Yi Shiwen had come all the way to the border of the Daming Kingdom, which was very close to the Great Yu Empire. However, this very prosperous kingdom in the past was long gone. The ancient road that would be opened once every 100 years was also completely plunged into the flames of war. Many barbarian clan armored horsemen were plundering and killing in various villages. Run. Everyone runs. Once we escape back to True Martial School, we will be safe. Yi Shiwen appeared in front of a group of a dozen disciples. None of them were average civilians. All of them are Sage Realm level masters from the Enforcement Hall. The elite disciples in Law Enforcement Hall were sent out at this time to extinguish the chaotic wars in the South region, and to eliminate the organizations that made the chaos. Law Enforcement Hall was the nemesis of the barbarian clan. Hence, a large number of Law Enforcement Hall masters were sent to execute these barbarian plunderers. A team of Sage Realm masters was considered powerful in this chaotic world. But now, they were completely panic-stricken and chased down. Behind them was an order composed of thousands of barbarian clan armored horsemen. All of them were the elite. The weakest among them would be legendary. The leading 100 armored horsemen were Sage Realm masters. The leader was a great sage with a stubble beard. When such an elite force was placed in any tribe in the southern wilderness, they could be regarded as the rank of the Imperial Guard. This elite force actually turned out in full strength in this place. In the face of this once-in-lifetime opportunity, the infighting between the South Barbarian, which was so common, disappeared all at once. Many among them suddenly put down their hatred for each other, and took advantage of this opportunity to seize the fertile lands in the South region. All of it was for the tribe to compete for better living conditions. Ha ha ha, escape to True Martial School. What a joke! Now that True Martial School can't protect itself, you better surrender. Otherwise I won't show mercy. The great sage with stubble beard laughed loudly. He was quite rampant as he did not take True Martial School, which was currently in the midst of war, into his eye. Would the group of true martial school's disciples dare to stop? If they dared to stop at this time, wouldn't they be courting death? Humph. The great sage with a stubble beard sneered, seemingly blaming these people for not following his command. The barbarian's mount was an elephant-like beast. It was tamed by him, and became his good helper. The barbaric beast had already entered the great sage, and its combat effectiveness was very strong. However, with just a long roar, its very long nose was stretched out at once, reaching hundreds of feet. It directly took the last two law enforcement hall female disciples who fled. In the face of the great sage-level barbaric elephant, these two female disciples who were already sage realm did not have any means of resistance. They were almost suffocated to death during the process. In the blink of an eye, they immediately fell into the hands of the great sage with a stubble beard. In an instant, their clothes were stripped. The great sage with a stubble beard raped them on the spot. The scene was barbaric and cruel. In the duration of a dozen breaths, the two Sage Realm female disciples had all their yin energy extracted and died on the spot. As a matter of fact, although the martial arts did have erotic desire, the erotic desire was not very attractive to most of the martial arts as compared with the long journey in pursuing martial Tao. Some of them were even repulsive to it. The general choice was only dual cultivation, so it had evolved into various dual cultivation martial techniques. Some of them were quite ruthless as it would extract all the essence and chi from the other's body. This great sage obviously used one of those techniques. At this time, he was smiling proudly in the sky. The barbarian armored horseman behind him also laughed out loud. Such cruel scene for them was nothing at all. At this time, Yishiwen finally realized that it was not that the barbarians could not catch up with this law enforcement hall team, but that they were simply toying with them. The barbarian group let them flee first. Then, they would hunt them down one by one. It was just like how a cat will toy with a mouse before eating them. Yishiwen was raging in fury in that instant. Although he didn't have a good relationship with law enforcement hall's disciples, the law enforcement hall's disciples were still part of true martial school after all. Seeing them being abused by the enemy, Yishiwen definitely would be angered. These barbarians were sentenced to death in Yi Ziwen's mind. Yishiwen gazed at the law enforcement hall disciples. Their faces turned sour as they trembled on the spot. They were too angered. How could they not know that they were just a group of rats being toyed by cats? However, they had no other way. After all, their strength was worse than the opponent. You guys don't know your limits. True martial school will never let you go. You all go to hell. A law enforcement hall's disciples shouted angrily. Let us go? Ha ha ha. Now it's not whether you want to let us go, but the true martial school can't even protect itself. How terrifying is the emergent school outside this region? You don't have any chance of winning. Are you being delusional that the true martial school is at its peak? The great sage laughed dismissively. In the eyes of these bystanders, true martial school was already dead. There could be no accidents at all. True martial school was indeed powerful, and they were even terrified of it. If true martial school was still usually strong, these barbarians definitely would not dare to get involved in the South region. This would void the contract signed between South region and South wilderness for countless years. Small-scale looting could be overlooked and forgiven. However, once they had large-scale invasion, they put true martial school as their enemy. Then, they would need to bear true martial school's thunderous wrath. But now, the true martial school could not even protect itself. Under the attack of emergent school, the destruction of true martial school seemed imminent. After all, the current true martial school was not the true martial school in the past. It was far weaker than the previous one. Of course, if it was the former true martial school, then emergent school certainly did not have the guts to detonate the war between these two superb forces. Fight with them since we are going to die anyway. It is better for us to fight vigorously. Our law enforcement hall's disciples are not cowards. A male disciple of law enforcement hall suddenly shouted. He could not bear to be treated like a mouse getting toyed. He roared all of a sudden, rushing towards the barbarian armored horseman. Don't overrate yourself and do something impossible. The great sage with a stubble beard sneered. There was a bone rod from an unknown demonic beast in his hand. It was more than 3 meters long, like a long spear, dancing like a dragon in his hand. Suddenly, it swooshed down quickly and ruthlessly. Boom! The law enforcement hall's disciple was totally unmatched. He was directly smashed into a ball of minced meat on the spot. Stop! A furious voice came from a distance. A blue shadow rushed in like a thunder. Chapter 737. Rescue, how dare you! Yi Shiwen flew over from a distance, turned into a golden light, and rushed in. Senior Brother Yi. The law enforcement hall's disciples noticed that the savior turned out to be Yi Shiwen. They addressed Senior Brother Yi in difficulty. The relationship between them and Yi Shiwen was not great, but simply terrible. The group consisted Sage Realm Masters, considered middle-level elite in the law enforcement hall. Yi Shiwen knew these people very well. No one could say how their hatred started, but there was lots of bad blood. So after seeing the person who turned out to be Yi Shiwen, their faces were a little weird. From the standpoint of true martial school, they were naturally brothers. But in terms of law enforcement hall, Yi Shiwen wasn't really their ally. But even so, they did not dare to speak out in disrespect. After all, Yi Shiwen showed much better strength than them regardless of whether there was an element of luck in defeating Wuxia. Yi Ziwen's great sage-level strength was enough to convince them as a senior. Besides, Yi Shiwen was here to rescue them. The feeling surged in their minds could only be explained by this word, tangled. The group simply did not know what to do. But the gratitude still overwhelmed all emotions at the current moment. Who are you? How dare you intervene in my matters? The great sage with a stubble beard saw Yi Shiwen appear, and immediately became hostile at Yi Shiwen with some hints of ridicule. I'm someone to kill you. South barbarians are indeed really brave. You all dared to take advantage of this time to invade the north, then you all shall die. Yi Shiwen sneered and suddenly roared. His roar consisted of many swords chi. Soon, Yi Ziwen's sword chi filled up the air. Swoosh! 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 With a sharp screech, these swords had instantly cut through the vast sky. Puff! 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 With the sound of a sonic bomb. All the South barbarian masters who were arrogant just now were all blown into a blood mist by sword chi. Their strength was far too inferior as compared to Yi Shiwen. Yi Shiwen, who had stepped into Great Sage Realm, would not put both Legendary or Sage Realm in his eyes. Roar! The Great Sage Master with a stubble beard saw Yi Shiwen kill all of his men in an instant. He glared at Yi Shiwen immediately with a resolute intention to mince Yi Shiwen into pieces. On the other hand, the law enforcement hall's disciples stared at the scene before them in a daze. They couldn't believe the scene before them because they were so horrible. Of course, they knew the power of the South barbarian warriors. Aside from the absolute advantage in numbers, the law enforcement hall's disciples might not win even in a one-on-one battle. Although they were all elites in true martial school and outstanding people in the same rank, there was no doubt that the South barbarian was not really weaker. If these South barbarian warriors were sent out this time, they would definitely be the elites among the elites. Hence, they were very challenging opponents. The pursuit just now was not because the law enforcement hall disciples were capable of escape, but they were toyed around. Otherwise, they would be long killed already. But Yi Shiwen managed to eradicate these people and turn them into clusters of blood mist under the law enforcement hall's disciples' witness. It was indeed a terrifying scene. Except for the great sage who exuded many chis to protect himself, the others were simply unmatched to Yi Ziwen's sword chi and were directly slashed to death. The originally suppressed Yi Ziwen's aura also burst out in all directions. The Great Sage Realm chi swept out like a storm. Did he really step into the Great Sage Realm? The disciples of law enforcement hall stared at the scene before them. It was unbelievable. Although Yi Shiwen had defeated Wuxia previously, many people still felt that he might have used a secret technique. His own strength was nothing but a half-step Great Sage. When Yi Shiwen really stepped into the Great Sage, the disciples of law enforcement hall were surprised. Yi Shiwen didn't stay in true martial school for more than 100 years, right? Although they did not count it carefully, it certainly did not. In less than 100 years, Yi Shiwen had escalated to the Great Sage Realm, making these self-proclaimed elites feel inferior. Did we all waste our time? Isn't that an indisputable fact? Compared with Yi Zaiwen's miraculous speed, their training progress could really be described as in vain. But they quickly calmed down again. They naturally understood that it was unwise to compare to others in this manner. There were various geniuses in the world. Compared with these monstrous geniuses, they were nothing. Damn you! Go to hell! The great sage with a stubble beard lost his judgment after getting enraged by Yi Shiwen. After all, Yi Shiwen already proved that he was also a great sage after exuding his qi. However, Yi Shiwen was still a great sage initial. Compared with the great sage late on the South Barbarian side, the gap was still fairly big. He didn't put Yi Shiwen in his eyes, but just felt that Yi Shiwen was just courting death. 100 Barbarians Lurin Finger. He directly launched a finger attack that swooshed from the sky. The finger tapped onto the empty air, and the attack struck Yi Shiwen. He wanted to kill Yi Shiwen directly. The great sage late was an elite originated from the South Barbarian clan's 100 Barbarians cave. Taking advantage of the chaos in the South region this time, he directly rushed out from southern wilderness, but encountered Yi Shiwen here. Yi Shiwen sneered. He was still annoyed with the pursuit he suffered from a South Barbarian great sage last time. He was hunted and forced to retreat all the way back to true martial school from southern wilderness. Although these South Barbarians were divided into many forces, Yi Shiwen felt no difference in mind. They were all from the same barbarian clan with no difference. Immediately, Yi Shiwen punched out directly and turned the surrounding scene into a universe void. He was the only real body in the universe. The stars seemingly listened to Yi Zaiwen's command and bombarded 100 barbarians Lurin Finger. Boom! With a huge roar, terrible power swept through it, shattered countless mountains directly. The great sage with a stubble beard screamed in pain. His entire arm was badly mangled. Yi Zaiwen's power was terrible despite the current attack originating from his main body, but not the Star Beast avatar. No matter what, this great sage with a stubble beard was not that extremely powerful black-robed man. This great sage barbarian with a stubble beard was nothing in front of the half-step transcendent realm black-robed man. The two sides were not at the same level. The entire arm of the great sage barbarian was almost shocked by Yi Zaiwen's attack into a blood mist, almost killed on the spot. He was still seriously injured by that huge shock, and his eyes had hints of trepidation. He couldn't believe that Yi Shiwen was nothing more than a great sage initial. How could Yi Shiwen cause such great damage to him? Most importantly, he was already the elite from the barbarian clan. The superb physical body of the barbarian clans was well known. On the other hand, Yi Shiwen showed terrible physical cultivation in this attack, which had terrified him the most. However, Yi Shiwen did not give him the great sage barbarian any opportunity to stay in panic. He directly chased in to kill the great sage barbarian. The great sage barbarian did not have the spatial ability like the black-robed man. He had no time to respond to the unpredictable speed of Yi Zaiwen's main body. Bang! Yi Shiwen directly bombarded his physical body and harvested all his wealth into the Tianyuan mirror. It was seemingly hundreds millions of elixir. For the current for Yi Shiwen, it wasn't much. After beheading the great sage from the South Barbarian clan, Yi Shiwen turned to the disciples of Law Enforcement Hall. At this time, he didn't have any intention to continue to care about his previous grudges. He merely spoke faintly. South Barbarians' invasions are everywhere. Quickly retreat it. You're unmatched to stop them. The disciples of Law Enforcement Hall looked at Yi Shiwen in conflict. Although Yi Shiwen spoke bluntly, he was right. This was indeed not a situation they could stop. In the face of South Barbarians' great sage, the so-called elites or geniuses were only a little better than the average person, and it did not amount to anything at all. They could only watch their sisters in Law Enforcement Hall being raped by the South Barbarian great sage. If it weren't for Yi Zaiwen's timely arrival, they would have already died in the hands of that great sage. Although they were still escaping, they also knew that if no miracle happened, they would not be able to escape from the great sage with a stubble beard. How long would it take for a great sage realm to kill some sage realm warriors? It could be done in one breath. This was how the great sage realm suppressed the sage realm. Their very reason for the constant escape was to wait for such a miracle to happen. They were hoping there would be a master of true martial school passing by to save them. Now the miracle finally happened, but it was Yi Shiwen who they had looked down upon previously. No matter what, I would like to thank Brother Yi for saving my life today. A law enforcement hall's disciple stepped forward and seemed to be the leader of these disciples. You're welcome. It's my responsibility. Yi Shiwen said lightly, and did not take this matter seriously. These Sage Realm warriors were not worthy to be his concerns at this time. I wonder if Brother Yi is heading towards the Great Yu Empire. The disciple probed. Yi Zaiwen's origin and background were not a secret in true martial school. After all, such a legendary character. How could true martial school nurture him without a thorough investigation of his origin and background? And Yi Shiwen nodded. It was not to his surprise. Chapter 738. Divine Legion Reappearance. Brother Yi, you should hurry, said the disciple. What do you mean? Yi Zaiwen's eyes suddenly glinted. He couldn't help but get nervous when the Great Yu Empire was mentioned because his relatives and friends were all over there. He couldn't ignore them. Several of us were originally dispatched to guard the 10 countries in the eastern South region, to fight against the various malicious organizations that emerged. However, we were driven out at that time, and we met this savage barbarian on the road. When the disciple mentioned the great sage barbarian with a stubble beard, his face was also filled with indignation and hatred as though he wanted to swallow the barbarian's bones. Who driven you out? Yi Shiwen immediately asked, knowing that although the elite team of law enforcement hall disciples was nothing in his eyes, it was arguably the most top-notch force among the 10 countries in the southeast region. Last time, Emergence School sent a great sage to stir up troubles in the 10 countries of the southeast region. From the fact that he almost unified the 10 countries of the southeast region, it was apparent that the entire southeast region was remote. Secondly, a sage realm master could dominate a place. Not even a great sage was needed. In that place, someone could drive out the disciples of law enforcement hall. It was conceivable how strong the opponent was. We don't know, but they are a group of very terrifying masters under Divine's banner. They swept all the way to the southeast region. Now they probably had entered the territory of the Great Yu Empire. All the sects were uprooted despite having the presence of great sage in the sections. We thought we were unmatched, so we planned to return to the school and ask the senior leaders for help. The disciple replied. Divine? Yi Shiwen frowned. He could not think of any organization under the banner of Divine. The only thing related to this was the Divine Legion. When Yi Shiwen thought of this organization, Yi Shiwen felt nervous. If it was the Divine Legion, then it would be really terrible. The grudge between him and the Divine Legion could be traced all the way when Yi Shiwen stepped on the ancient road and continued into the true martial school. The Divine Legion was mysterious and unpredictable. Aside from the first Divine Lord, all the Divine Lords up until the 5th were all eliminated in his hands. Even a page of God's scripture was in his hands. Because these leaders were defeated one after another, and as the status of Yi Shiwen continued to rise, the lives of these Divine Legion in the true martial school were becoming more and more difficult. Although many people disliked Yi Shiwen, there were many who favored Yi Shiwen too. They hoped to build a connection with Tibetan Star Summit via Yi Shiwen. Therefore, after being boycotted severely, the Divine Legion had fallen apart. Even if there were former members, they absolutely dared not to do things so brazenly under the Divine banner. Yi Shiwen knew about the Divine Legion's situation, but he didn't stop it. He was even happy to let it happen. The grudge between him and the Divine Legion was already a bloody feud. After all, Yi Shiwen had slaughtered 4 out of 5 Divine Lords in total. The existence of such forces was a hidden danger for him. Even if the Divine Legion did not split due to the existing boycott, Yi Shiwen would look for an opportunity to get rid of this hidden danger. After all, Yi Shiwen was clear about their fanatical behavior when dealing with the Divine Legion previously. These crazy fanatics were a headache. Even if they couldn't deal with Yi Shiwen, they would target his relative in Yuan sect. These people did not have the strength of Yi Shiwen. They were at most at the Truth Realm. For the remnants of the Divine Legion, Yi Shiwen could wipe out the whole legion. Yi Shiwen absolutely could not allow such hidden danger to exist. With Yi Zaiwen's status at true martial school, it would be painless even if the top levels denounced him. It would be impossible to impose huge constraints on him. Yi Shiwen could only become more at ease when Divine Legion dispersed. But what really made him uneasy was that the unpredictable first Divine Lord who disappeared. Moreover, according to the news he got from Jiao Mujiao, the first Divine Lord had gone to Southern Dipper for help and became a constellation of Southern Dippers. This became a serious issue. As a member of Big Dipper, although Yi Shiwen did not participate in Big Dipper to a great extent, he still knew very well about the powerful strength of Big Dipper. That was why he could even imagine Southern Dipper's strength who had contended against Big Dippers for so many years. Under the nurture of the Southern Dipper, it was expected that the cultivation of the first Divine Lord would soar. Yi Shiwen did not know what would be his level when meeting him again. This was also a huge hidden threat, but Yi Shiwen had no way to go about it. In terms of the news from the Southern Dipper, Big Dipper obtained it in great difficulty despite fighting them for countless years. What's more, between Yi Shiwen and the Big Dipper, it could only be regarded as a cooperative relationship. Yi Shiwen was not integrated into the Big Dipper. He couldn't get much information. So even if Yi Shiwen wanted to eradicate him, there was no other way. At this time, his strength was still too poor. He couldn't really rush directly to the Southern Dipper's base. As for the Southern Dipper's nest, even if it was located, it must be well guarded. Never mind Yi Zaiwen's body, even if Star Beast Avatar went, it would be a dead end. So Yi Shiwen simply had no way against the first Divine Lord who had surrendered to the Southern Dipper. He had to wait for opportunity slowly, waiting for one day to get more news about the first Divine Lord, and then look for opportunities to eliminate the first Divine Lord. But now there was another organization under the banner of Divine. Yi Shiwen had a strong hunch that it was likely that the Divine Legion was dispatched. Afterward, Yi Shiwen asked a few more questions, including that members' clothing and the like. After a brief comparison, Yi Shiwen was sure that this Divine Legion was the Divine Legion in its mind. If it was the Divine Legion, then it would really be troublesome. But the Divine Legion was not a big deal to Yi Shiwen. Even though it was undeniably very powerful for the disciples of the Southeast region, or these Law Enforcement Hall disciples, what really made him afraid was the first Divine Lord. If the first Divine Lord reappeared again, the probability of the first Divine Lord confronting Yi Shiwen and his family would be high. It would not be so likely usually. After all, the first Divine Lord was still part of Southern Dipper. Unfortunately, Yi Shiwen predicted correctly. The first Divine Lord appeared again, and the target was Yi Zaiwen's family. Although the disciple didn't say that, Yi Shiwen came to this judgment immediately. Compared to the entire South region, the Southeast region was just a remote place worth nothing at all. The Big Dipper and neither the Divine Legion would put this area in their eyes. Even the Great Ming Empire next to the top 10 countries in the Southeast region was disregarded by them. Even though their invasion might put limitations on true martial school, the biggest reason was that there were no resources worthy of them here. The only reason Yi Shiwen could think of was related to himself. That was for revenge to eradicate all his family members. Although the first Divine Lord might not be able to fight Yi Shiwen, it was more than enough to clean up his family. Thinking of this, Yi Shiwen immediately became anxious and quickly said to the disciples of Law Enforcement Hall, "Thank you, I will not send you back. You just have to follow the direction I came. I eradicated the rebellious organizations on my journey here. If you go back to true martial school in the direction I came from, you should be able to avoid a lot of trouble." After speaking, Yi Shiwen couldn't care about saying goodbye to them, and spread out a pair of golden wings directly behind him. They fluttered and Yi Shiwen flew out. Although Yi Shiwen hurriedly left without saying goodbye, none of the Law Enforcement Hall disciples felt anything, and even felt a little flattered. Although they had bad blood with Yi Shiwen, Yi Zaiwen's status today had escalated further than future Hall Master, Mu Xingjia. For a great character, they would feel flattered for a simple cup hand gesture especially. It was common in a group. Generally for the strong, even if anyone manages to chat with them, the person will be elated for a long time. The law enforcement hall disciple might not admire Yi Shiwen now, but Yi Shiwen had become a peerless character in their hearts unconsciously. In their hearts, Yi Shiwen was not on the same level as Mu Xingjie, but it was not too far away. No matter what, Yi Shiwen was a character they needed to look up to. I didn't expect this Yi Shiwen to actually grow to such a degree in just a few decades. Before that, most likely no one thought about it. A disciple of law enforcement hall said with a sigh. He spoke out the inner voice of most law enforcement hall disciples, especially the elite disciples among them. They dismissed Yi Shiwen at first, and only felt that he was an irrelevant clown who was unmatched with their law enforcement hall. However, when they really opened their eyes and took this opponent they had never put in their eyes seriously, he found that Yi Ziwen's progress was too fast. They soon were unable to catch up. When they were able to deal with Yi Shiwen, they dismissed it. When they wanted to deal with Yi Shiwen, they found that the situation was reversed, but Yi Shiwen disregarded them. Perhaps, besides Mu Xingjie, these people had no qualifications for Yi Shiwen to put her into his eyes. Yeah, who has expected that? As they said, heroes born in a troubled world. A person like him can stand out in this situation, said the leader of law enforcement hall's disciple. Let's stop our chatter. We should hurry away. We still need to report to the hall master on the South Barbarian matter. Yep. Chapter 739. Chaotic Great Yu Empire. Yi Shiwen didn't know that the law enforcement hall disciples behind him had so many complicated thoughts. In fact, as the law enforcement hall disciples had complicated views on him, he was in the same shoe too. After all, Yi Shiwen had bad blood with the law enforcement hall for decades. It still felt kinda weird. However, these thoughts only flashed in his mind in a glimpse. He couldn't get distracted once he learned that the Divine Legion invaded the Great Yu Empire. He couldn't be a cold-blooded person who disregards his loved ones and family in trouble. For him, if these loved ones were all troubled because of him, then he might hate himself all his life. For him, nothing was more important than his family. If it was the Divine Legion as he had guessed, then the first Divine Lord must be in it, which was a good opportunity to eradicate the roots. I really didn't expect it. Despite my efforts to search high and low, my target is here. Yi Shiwen smiled coldly and said. His figure flew in midair, seemingly a cluster of golden light if viewed from a far distance. In the blink of an eye, he disappeared at the edge of the sky hastily. He almost penetrated the space. At this time he was anxious. If he had known about it earlier, he would keep Star Beast Avatar at his side. With the help of Star Beast in the Great Sage Great Perfection realm, his speed would be much faster. Although his speed was not slow, it was paramount to accelerate even just a second since he was so anxious in his heart. However, it was useless to talk about it now. Yi Shiwen just gave all he got and flew out. Yi Shiwen, the so-called first Divine Lord of the Divine Legion, hid for so many years. He even surrendered himself to Southern Dipper. He would not be like you but mingled around Southern Dipper's circle. After so many years, he would most likely attain the full support from the Southern Dipper in his cultivation. The organization is very terrifying. If they cultivate a person with all their strength, he will definitely grow further after so many years, and may pose a huge threat to you, said Yemo. Hence, this is a great opportunity to eradicate the root. Even though your progress is also fast, this person might be a calamity in the future due to Southern Dipper's nurture. You should take advantage of this opportunity and behead him in one fell swoop to eliminate this calamity lurking in the shadow. Yemo suggested that for him. He was indifferent in offering such advice to Yi Shiwen. For him, he would disregard any values and morality as long as it would benefit Yi Shiwen. Yi Shiwen was now his foundation. He could only recover if Yi Shiwen could live and develop peacefully. Yeah, Yi Shiwen nodded in all seriousness. In fact, he was also thinking of the same idea. Since the first Divine Lord dared to act so brazenly, there would not be a second chance. He would never let the first Divine Lord escape from his pursuit. I should be able to make it on time. Please, I beg you. Yi Shiwen prayed in his heart. The demon wings behind him fanned fanatically, but fortunately, this was a pair of wings condensed via energy. If it was a physical body, it would be torn off after this fanatical movement. But Yi Shiwen, who was in a hurry, couldn't care less. Soon Yi Shiwen had already reached the border between the Great Yu Empire and Great Ming Empire. He stepped onto the ancient road here in the past, leading to the true martial school. However, as for his second return in comparison to the past, the several originally balanced forces in the Great Yu Empire were wiped out. All of it was because of the blood-garmented noble. Yuan sect had become the major force. For decades, Yuan sect had not wasted this opportunity and penetrated into all aspects of the Great Yu Empire. In the end, it transformed into the super overlord of the Great Yu Empire. Even the original Great Yu Empire's royal family had also become a puppet of Yuan sect. Yi Shiwen had the general knowledge of the situation. Even this place was far from true martial school, but it was not a completely different domain. If Yi Shiwen asked around, he would get some input. Chief Yifan would often bring some news from Yuan sect to Yi Shiwen too. Yi Shiwen was not affected by the news. It was the same everywhere. It was either the royal family suppressed the sect, or the sect took control of the royal family. There was no difference. It was merely a duplicate of true martial schools means to control the countries in the South region. The rising status of Yi Shiwen in the true martial school, and his battle records were spread back to the Great Yu Empire one by one. Hence, the Mountain Qingfeng branch and the Yi family also became the elders of Yuan sect headquarters, due to their relationship with Yi Shiwen. They all had attained the truth power realm, and even legendary. Even though they were minute ants in true martial school, they were a distinguished character in the southeast region. This was also the benefit brought by Yi Shiwen, so Yi Shiwen did not bring his parents to true martial school. There was simply no need for it. In true martial school, they could not enjoy such treatment. Entering the Great Yu Empire, Yi Shiwen saw another battlefield situation. After the previous Great War, all the forces of the Great Yu Empire were swept away, leaving only Yuan sect alone. Under the control of Yuan sect, the Great Yu Empire had become more prosperous. It was because they could develop more wholeheartedly without the restraint of other forces, so they quickly restored to their pre-war prosperity. But looking at the situation now, it was basically a troubled time enveloped in the flame of war. It was no better than the other countries in the South region, and potentially even worse than the countries in the South region. Yi Shiwen could see various demonic beasts running amok almost everywhere, roaring and attacking towns and villages. It was a scene akin to a Jura underworld. Damn it! Yi Shiwen roared. Every pore on his body seemed to exude sword chi. It was bombarded from the sky, eliminating large numbers of demonic beasts that were still running amok. Yi Shiwen slaughtered hundreds of them in each wave of attack. Many unarmed average civilian underneath saw Yi Shiwen save them and bowed down on the ground, thanking Yi Shiwen for his life-saving grace. However, Yi Shiwen didn't even bother to speak to them now, and went straight to the direction of Yuan sect. All the demonic beasts encountered along the way were all beheaded. Even Yi Shiwen saw that many demonic beasts in the water also took the opportunity to climb to the shore to kill indiscriminately. Something is amiss, Yi Shiwen. Take a look. Savage and absent-mindedness painted the eyes of these demonic beasts. They are obviously under someone's control. Yemo reminded. Yi Shiwen investigated it and realized it was true. Among the crimson eyes of these demonic beasts, there were rays running in them, which was just a sign of being controlled. Although he was flying in the sky at a great speed, he could still see it clearly. He was certain on his deductions. He became furious deep down his heart. He knew this was Divine Legion's means. No wonder, originally these demonic beasts will run amok, but these demonic beasts do not have any commander. Generally, the powerful demonic beast's commander will also be eliminated in the shortest period of time by the powerful sect. It is impossible for the demonic beasts to form a united force. This had not happened in the past. It could even be said that when the new human group just entered the true martial school, the demonic beast's ruler, and the kingdom of demonic beasts could be said to be everywhere. Each of them was huge and terrifying. The demon beast king in the demon beast kingdom could command countless demonic beasts to charge into the battlefield. These beasts were not afraid of death, causing huge damage to human ancestors. Therefore, human beings were very afraid in this respect. Generally, if there were signs of any demonic beast's commander, they would often be annihilated in the first place. So even if there were demonic beasts running amok, it was rare. They were usually individual cases, unless there was demonic beasts tied. However, it was quite rare on occasion. It was generally impossible to happen. But now in almost every mountain, as long as there are demonic beasts, there are demonic beasts running amok in chaos. These demonic beasts even left the mountain and stirred up chaos at the mountain foot. There were also demonic beasts in the water. The demonic beasts from the sea also started to stir up chaos. It was an abnormal thing in itself. Although there were some demonic beasts having the wisdom not inferior to humans, they would be the minority. Most of the demonic beasts had limited wisdom. How would they know this was the best chance to stir up trouble and caught true martial school off guard? The Divine Legion must be behind this. Yi Zaiwen's heart was immediately filled with anger. He was really determined to eradicate the entire Divine Legion. The bad blood between the Divine Legion and Yi Shiwen was so deep. The Divine Legion not only wanted to kill Yi Shiwen, but also eradicate the Yuan sect, the Great Yu Empire, and even the entire East-South region. In this case, thousands of civilians would lose their lives. Yi Shiwen was self-aware that he was not a kind-hearted person, but he would never do such a heart-wrenching thing. The answer was already obvious. The first Divine Lord. Only he had the ability to mobilize the Divine Legion, and only he had such a motive. Yi Shiwen beheaded all of his brothers after all. The first Divine Lord must be beheaded. He had now caused such great trouble. If he is not beheaded this time, it would evolve into a much bigger mess. Thinking of this, Yi Shiwen was exceptionally determined. Unconsciously, he had already approached the Yuan sect. Before he got closer, he saw the Divine Legion surrounded the gate of Yuan sect, covering the whole sky. Chapter 740. The Return of the Wolf Cub. Huge Divine's flags were waving in the sky. The Divine Legion was domineering. There were at least tens of thousands of people. Under the first Divine Lord's leadership, the Divine Legion had developed into this scale, albeit it was destroyed by Yi Shiwen at true martial school in the past. It was much more powerful than how it initially was. Undeniably, the first Divine Lord could rank first among the 5 Divine Lord. His means and strength were indeed incomparable to the average person. These were the elites, not less than the army that Yi Shiwen met on the extraterrestrial battlefield previously. One could imagine what kind of scene it would be when such an army invaded Yuan sect collectively. The arrays of Yuan sect were broken apart one by one. They were as wavering as bamboo sticks, despite Yi Shiwen playing a role in setting up those arrays. If only based on the arrays of Yuan sect itself, it would probably be destroyed with no remnants left behind. However, Yi Shiwen was a little baffled. Based on the strength and level of Yuan sect, they could not even sustain themselves for even half an hour if they encountered a legion in this scale. However, this legion was unable to penetrate into the Yuan sect, but stuck on the periphery. Although they were still advancing, there was still a big gap from the state of destruction. Motherfucker, shame on you. The first Divine Lord? You're really a gutless rat. You can only bully your opponent's family member. Do you dare to go against Yi Shiwen head-to-head? Come out and fight me if you're so capable. Suddenly, there was a familiar sound coming from Yuan sect. Then, a dark ray flew out of Yuan sect, but it was pitch black. It was a 2-foot-long wolf cub who looked like a native dog that jumped out. It directly rushed into the Divine Legion. Strands of divine light spattered from his body wherever he passed. Those members of the Divine Legion were bombarded on the spot. The wolf cub was just like a prehistoric vicious beast. Yi Shiwen was speechless. Oh my god, a creature like a native dog is none other than wolf cub. This wolf cub did not even grow bigger, but shrunk in size. But it is still like a ruffian. I can recognize it at first glance. Most importantly, Yi Shiwen was annoyed. If it wasn't for the fact that the Divine Legion were outside, Yi Shiwen would like to rush in to slap the wolf cub. Sure enough, it was the same as it was a few decades ago with not much difference. However, although Yi Shiwen was speechless, he was still very surprised when he saw the wolf cub. Although he and the wolf cub often played and quarreled with each other, it was still in fact the closest one to Yi Shiwen in the world. The wolf cub rescued him in many disasters. Only a few decades ago, the wolf cub of secretive origins was brought back by the people on Thousands Demon Beasts Island, saying that it would come back after close cultivation to Sage Realm. However, until Yi Shiwen himself entered Sage Realm, he didn't receive any news from the wolf cub. So Yi Shiwen gave up the thoughts gradually. He was still clear about Thousands Demon Beasts Island's background. It was said to be Beast Clan's heaven. Yi Shiwen could still not forget the Beast King's grandeur. They said Beast King was someone who could compete with Demon King. Since Thousand Demon Beast Island was their home, God knows what dangers lay within it for Yi Shiwen. What Yi Shiwen saw last time was just the tip of the iceberg. Moreover, hazards were not the stronger deterrents. The most crucial issue was that even Yi Shiwen couldn't find the location of Thousands Demon Beasts Island. Thousands Demon Beasts Island's entrance was only available every 50 years. Last time was Yi Ziwen's first visit to Thousands Demon Beasts Island. Yi Shiwen was not sure whether Thousands Demon Beasts Island would open again or not. This bastard. Yi Shiwen laughed and scolded. His eyes were sparkling and translucent. Then, he became solemn the next moment. Among the Divine Legion, a majestic aura rose through the sky. A terrifying great sage aura swept through the world. The first move was extremely fierce. It was a terrifying gray saber aura falling from the sky, slashing straight on Wolf Cub. It was an apparent attempt to split the Wolf Cub into half. The scene appeared as though heaven and earth was cut in half in an instant. Yi Shiwen just wanted to give warning, but the Wolf Cub gave off a howl. His figure dashed forward, leaving a residual image behind. The saber aura only slashed on the residual image, thus did not hurt its physical body. But after this saber aura broke through the sky, it fell on the gate of Yuan sect. The vast mountains of Yuan sect were cut in half in an instant. Countless arrays were cut off by this saber aura in an instant. After all, although Yi Shiwen helped to strengthen these arrays in the past, the Yi Shiwen in the past was just a sage realm. At that time, the arrays arranged were better than Yuan sect. But they still couldn't resist the attack of a great sage realm. The entire array was completely obliterated under this saber. The great sage realm's strength was terrible. Among the Divine Legion, there was suddenly a jubilant battle cry. From the content of their cheering, Yi Shiwen knew it was the first Divine Legion who made the move. Some of my brothers died because of this native dog. Just cut it into half to pay tribute to my brothers. A cold voice rushed out among the clouds. As for that Yi Shiwen, he definitely will die. When all these remaining dregs are killed, I will naturally go to true martial school and behead him. You are the dreg. Your whole family is dreg, even your sect too. Fool, you only dare to boast. But, do you really dare to face off him? True martial school is already in war. If a person like you goes there, you can only be regarded as a cannon fodder. Stop talking big. Wolf Cub scolded as he evaded the attacks. Wolf claws composed of divine light kept spreading from Wolf Cub's body. Every place it passed by, the Divine Legion would suffer a crushing defeat. The Wolf Cub's movement technique granted it haste. Despite being unmatched to Yi Ziwen's demon wings, it was still an extraordinary movement technique. I don't need to explain myself to anyone else. It wasn't easy to find you, stupid dog. Since you come to the door, I'm going to stew a pot of dog meat tonight. Another sneer of the first Divine Lord came from the sky. The Divine Lord's cold voice was filled with arrogance. He did not put the Wolf Cub's words in his eyes. Divine Lord, being a person fluent in conspiracy, made him a difficult opponent to be dealt with. Saber aura kept bombarding from the sky. However, for the Wolf Cub with the extremely fast movement technique, the saber aura couldn't catch up at all. Every time, the Wolf Cub dodged the attack with a narrow gap. On the contrary, wherever he went, those members of the Divine Legion were startled. This made the first Divine Lord to be a bit irritable. He directly appeared in the sky. It was a man in iron-plated armor. This iron-plated armor emitted series of divine light. The divine light fluctuating on his body made him appear like an imposing god. His face was completely covered in the iron helmet, making it impossible for people to see through. After I eradicate this Yuan sect, I will slaughter this dog. The first Divine Lord was impatient for being unable to kill the wolf cub. He quickly moved his gaze to Yuan sect, which was also the main purpose of him coming this time. Sinister vibe kept seeping out from his iron helmet. I can finally take my revenge. For many years, after all my brothers were slaughtered one by Yi Shiwen, I had been planning this for a long time. I must eradicate Yuan sect from the roots without leaving any trace. I will let Yi Shiwen taste the pain of losing loved ones. Although the 5 of them were not blood-related brothers, they had fought together side by side for many years. They were closer than blood-related brothers. Finally, they established the Divine Legion. They thought they could come to true martial school. Who knows, before they could make a fame, they were destroyed by Yi Shiwen first. Not only did Yi Shiwen plummeted the brothers' dreams, even his 4 younger brothers all died in the hands of Yi Shiwen. For him, it was a deep hatred, terrible bad blood. Holding this bad blood in mind, he turned to Southern Dipper and practiced martial arts. Unlike Yi Shiwen, who was Big Dipper's outer member, he really turned to Southern Dipper fully to achieve his revenge, and became a Southern Dipper's member. Under the Southern Dipper's resources, his martial arts rapidly improved. Coupled with his extraordinary martial arts talents, his strength was the strongest among the 5 divine god. When he was on the ancient road, he was already a sage realm master. Due to this, the Divine Legion expanded so fast. He had escalated into the Great Sage more than 20 years ago. Since that time, he had recruited troops again to rebuild his Divine Legion. All of it was to return and wipe out Yuan sect. He could only vent his hatred when he eradicated Yi Shiwen. Originally, this plan had to be put on hold. After all, Yi Ziwen's strength was also very strong. Although Yi Ziwen's progress in cultivation was not as good as him, he did not dare to underestimate Yi Shiwen. Of course, the most important thing was that the southeast region composed of 10 empires were under the ruling of true martial school. If the situation inexplicably develops into slaughtering an empire, it would definitely attract the intervention of the true martial school's masters. By that time, he would fail his revenge and potentially be stuck in a dead end. Heaven will not disappoint the person who tries. He finally got the opportunity. It was Emergent School's invasion at True Martial School. With the invasion of Emergent School, True Martial School was fundamentally struggling to protect itself, let alone want to maintain order in its sovereign territory. Hence, this was the best time for him to take revenge. He came in majesty with his Divine Legion to wipe out all forces related to Yi Shiwen. Even though he did not dare to lay his hand on True Martial School, it was still easy to deal with such small forces as Yuan sect. This was a God-given opportunity. How would he anticipate that there would be a native dog coming out of nowhere? Even though this dog was inexplicably the accomplices of the person who killed his brother, the irritation coming from the trouble brought by the dog was more annoying than the death of his brothers. Please go to read the latest chapters for free. Chapter 741 Brother. This wolf cub's fighting style was irritating, worthy to the name of guerrilla warfare. However, in his view, it was basically an annoying psoriasis that was hard to get rid of. Most importantly, that agile movement technique made it difficult for the first Divine Lord to catch up. This native dog was also a great sage. Its mannerism was legendarily rogue. It really made him feel helpless. Seeing that the first Divine Lord was about to slash toward Yuan sect with his saber, Wolf Cub quickly returned and shouted, "The first Divine Lord, fight me if you are a man. What's so great with bullying someone weaker than you?" The first Divine Lord in the iron-plated armor snorted and did not take Wolf Cub's words to heart. "I will just eradicate this Yuan sect. Then, I will come and slash you, stupid dog." With that, the first Divine Lord raised the saber. Bizarre saber aura composed of black saber aura and white saber aura formed at his saber handle. The power of yin and yang was boiling within, then it burst out. It eventually formed a balanced power, painted in gray. The aura appeared terrifying. White represents life and black represents death. Life and death were seemingly under his control. This was a level that only God could attain. This was due to his special martial techniques. Yi Shiwen knew it clearly. He found some clues from the memories of the second, third, fourth, and fifth Divine Lord. Despite them being the first Divine Lord's brothers, they actually didn't know much about the secrets of the first Divine Lord. When these brothers were half-step legendary, the first Divine Lord had already attained the Sage Realm. Hence, there was not much chance to see his technique. In other words, every time when there was a strong enemy, the first Divine Lord would only join the battlefield in a short while. During that time, no one could let him use all his strength. In the hearts of the second Divine Lord onwards, the first Divine Lord was like God. They also never see him make a move before. They only had fragmented information about the first Divine Lord's martial arts. They only knew the first Divine Lord practiced a martial art called Yin and Yang Rainbow. This martial art did not sound cool, but it was devastating because it involved the power of Yin and Yang. These two elements belonged to Tai Chi too, which divided the power of Yin and Yang. It was just that the scenes from the second Divine Lord's original memory showed that when the first Divine Lord made a move, only one among the Yin and Yang forces was utilized at a time. At that time, that move was already excellent. However, it was still incomparable to the combined strength of Yin and Yang. So from that time on, Yi Shiwen was vigilant toward the first Divine Lord. Although it was just some brief scenes of the first Divine Lord using martial arts, it was enough to deter Yi Shiwen at that time. The power of Yin and Yang was undoubtedly a high-level law among martial art warriors. When it was evolved to the extreme, it could transform into primal chaos. In other words, the beginning of all things. After all things were evolved from chaos. One could imagine how powerful the Yin and Yang law was. In this encounter with the first Divine Lord, his first shot already involved the combination of Yin and Yang. Yi Shiwen couldn't help but startled. The Divine Legion, which approached the ancient road and almost wiped out all the other sects, was extraordinary. If it was Yi Shiwen at the time, it was hopelessly impossible to escape if he were to encounter the first Divine Lord. The gap between half-step legendary and Sage Realm Masters was so unimaginable. Despite Yi Shiwen being arrogant, he was still self-aware. Wolf Cub immediately pounced the first Divine Lord after seeing his action. Wolf Cub swooped over like a hungry wolf. Its movement technique was extremely fast and almost approached the first Divine Lord. If this first Divine Lord continued unscrupulously, then Yi Yuan sect would be really destroyed by him. It knew the might of a great sage very well, because it was also a great sage itself. Especially for the warriors below the great sage realm, the great sage was like God. There was no way to fight back. Of course, a monster like Yi Shiwen couldn't be counted. He could kill a great sage during half-step great sage realm. However, it didn't mean that others could do it. Such talent was so rare that it would only appear once every few years. The first Divine Lord sneered. The saber immediately changed its direction and slashed at the wolf cub. The long saber was as heavy as a mountain was slashed at the wolf cub. Everyone immediately understood that this was a huge trap. A trap to lure the wolf cub in. The first Divine Lord still wanted to eliminate wolf cub first. He would want to get rid of the threat that could wrestle with him. As for Yi Yuan sect, he had never put it in his eyes. Getting a few members in the Divine Legion was enough to wipe out the Yi Yuan sect. He came here in majesty to vent his anger. He wanted to let Yi Shiwen taste the pain of losing loved ones. He could only quench his anger by slaughtering the entire Yi Yuan sect. At that time, it would really be a great pleasure to put the head of Yi Ziwen's loved ones in front of him and watch Yi Shiwen go berserk. His plan was indeed very insidious, but it was also very effective. If the first Divine Lord succeeded, then Yi Shiwen would be grief-stricken. That was also the reason why Yi Shiwen did not go back to true martial school and hurried to Yi Yuan sect. It was a pity that this native dog came out halfway and disturbed his plan. Otherwise, he could have eradicated Yi Yuan sect already. Thinking of this, he was furious, and he had to kill the dog first. Look out! Be careful! No! There were countless yells from Yi Yuan sect. Countless people felt their heart hanging. This wolf cub was intimate to them because it was really close to the hero in their Yi Yuan sect, Yi Shiwen. Although Yi Shiwen did not visit Yi Yuan sect for decades, and there were many newcomers in Yuan sect. The legend about Yi Shiwen was never forgotten. As the top-notch legend of Yuan sect, Yi Shiwen had done many feats in Yuan sect, and the spree did not stop at True Martial School. Soon after, he became the legend of True Martial School. It solidified his position as the idol of fresh new disciples. After all, they were all young people. All of them were ambitious to make more achievements and to stand out. However, they were facing a brutal reality. They came from all over the Great Yu Empire. As the Yuan sect gathered all the talents of the Great Yu Empire, Yi Ziwen's story was quickly incorporated as inspirational stories. Even the wolf cub who followed Yi Shiwen had become well known. Everyone knew that Yi Shiwen had a wolf that looked like a native dog. Although many people had not seen it, they recognized Wolf Cub as soon as it had appeared. At this time, Wolf Cub was deceived and they could not help but be worried. The wolf cub that suddenly appeared at this time became the only savior in their hearts. If something happened to it, then Yuan sect was really over. Boom! The gray saber aura slashed onto Wolf Cub's body. Wolf Cub immediately screamed in pain and rolled straight down. Almost the entire waist was cut in half. For the Wolf clan, the waist was their most fragile spot. There was a saying tofu waist. 1. It applied even on Wolf Cub. With a loud click, his entire waist and bones were broken. Bone fragments splattered all over. It was badly mutilated. What a tragic sight. There was a hint of surprise in the eyes of the first Divine Lord. Unexpectedly, he failed to slash it into half with the saber. He was a veteran. Thus, he definitely knew the waist was the weakness of the Wolf clan. The saber slashed directly at its weakness, without holding back. Even the mountains and rivers would be slashed into half by his saber, but this waist was now slashed into half by this slash. This wolf definitely had a physical body far beyond his expectations. But that was fine for him. Adding another slash was enough to kill it. In the eyes of the first Divine Lord, the murderous intention flickered. The gray saber aura on the long saber in his hand suddenly splashed. It all surged forward again to slash towards Wolf Cub. First Divine Lord, don't you want to find me? I'm here. Yi Shiwen had to scream loudly as he flew over from a distance. Yi Shiwen. The eyes of the first Divine Lord flickered immediately. The loud shout was thunderous, stirring up clouds. The anger of a great sage could make the world cry. Yi Shiwen stepped forward calmly, but did not look at the first Divine Lord at all. His gaze fell directly on the wolf cub. It looked very dismal. The entire back was badly mutilated with many broken ribs. You're finally here. Wolf Cub grinned. It gritted its teeth in pain. Its black furry face suddenly showed extremely human-like emotions, reflecting the agonizing pain. Obviously, even though the first Divine Lord saber aura didn't slash it in two, it was a fatal blow. This motherfucker. Kill this bastard, and revenge me. Can't you just dodge it? Yi Shiwen looked at its current situation, and he couldn't help but pull its leg. Don't you have eyes? You're lucky for not getting cut into half by this saber. Hey, I didn't think about it that much that time. If I dodge it, the whole mountain will be split into half by him. When you come back, you will definitely panic. Wolf Cub laughed and breathed in cold air. It lied down, unable to move. Beat him up. Yi Shiwen didn't say anything, but felt warm in his heart. What a great brother. One tofu is very weak in nature. It is an analogy emphasizing how fragile the waist is. Please go to read the latest chapters for free. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.